Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 16. In his daily life with Kaiko-sama, Wu Yan said his insignificant days in a fulfilling way. His main duty is just to cook for Kaiko-sama, or to serve her some tea. But with such a cute 2D Xiaozhou moving around in front of him, he's indescribably happy. Our Kaiko-sama was planning on just giving him a T.I.Tle as butler, she didn't need one and she never wanted one as well. If not for his request, even the T.I.Tle butler would have been dispensed with, she just wants to help him who's homeless. TL, remember this P.R.I.C.K could beat the S.H.I.T out of anyone just by stuffing gold inside his socks. But, within this few days, with his service, she has become reliant on him. The reason is because within these few days she has been conquered. Her stomach, that is. With Culinary Master, his ability as a chef is world CLA.S.S, be it tea or rice or pastries, he's an expert in all of them. In just 2 to 3 days, she who would eat anything even if it's just plain rice and tea has been conquered, her taste has been conditioned, her mouth has been raised artfully. To capture one's heart, one must first capture her stomach. He skillfully changed the meal and snacks to different styles. Not only did he subjugate her stomach, he inadvertently fattened her mom a bit. Now that her stomach is in his hand, can the person resist for long? That's how he fantasized every day anyway. And so, 3 days said, and they spent much of the time away in sweet moments mixed with a squabble here and there. On this day, she brought him a good news. Squinting her eyes she gave a .U meant to him. Congratulations, Yan, from tomorrow onwards, you're a student of Heikuo Academy. About time it arrived. Ding. M1 complete. Obtained EP, IP, AP, SP each 1000 PTS. Ding. M2 initiated. Transcript World, Hayate the Combat Butler. M1, enter Heikuo Academy and become a high school student, completed. Reward, EP, IP, AP, SP 1000 PTS. M2, waste the yokai leader residing in the old dormitory, TL, clues and explanation in later chapters. Reward, EP, IP, AP, SP 10,000 PTS. M3, not initiated. Receiving the .U meant, the system notification streamed in, he's suppressing his excitement on the surface but he's basking in the blessing of the system inside his mind. Yokai leader? What's that? Why the H.E.L.L is something like this in the old dormitory? Why wasn't this in the original work? With so many people inside Heikuo, how come no one has discovered this apparition inside the old dormitory? Suddenly, he recalled that in the original work something like this did happen once. One night, Hayate, who was retrieving some stuff for Nagi, went into the old dormitory by mistake. Hinajiku, who came along due to the sound, resulted in both of them being chased by a ghost. Alright internet citizens, work your magic, get me a picture of these two getting chased by said monster, s. However, in reality, the ghost was just a stunt by Sajinomi Yaizumi. The purpose was to scare the two away, although she committed screwed up, in the end, and Hayate saw through it. He didn't call her out for it and just took Hinajiku away from that place. The elaborate hoax to scare of the two was done in order to properly conduct exorcism ritual without bringing collateral damage to both of them. Could it be, that in the original work, Izumi's target of exorcism was this yokai in the old dormitory? Why wasn't it a skirt-chasing mission? The other MCS clearly did those. What's the matter? Yan, are you not happy? Body knows for sure what psychological process he goes by, but in her eyes, after he received the .U meant, he laughed for a bit and then just went blank there. Maybe he got too happy? And now he's become emotionally unstable. He recovered and laughed it off. No, I'm very happy, it's just that I was thinking about some things. What kind of things were you thinking to stare off into MTS.P.A.ce? Curious, she asked. Taking a fake pose of contemplation, he snickered. I was thinking, to prevent milady from getting fat, perhaps it's high time to reduce your food consumption. You can't. She shouted on reflex. But after she saw his grinning face, she turned red and shot an angry look at him. I'm the type that won't get fat no matter how much I eat, so you don't have to worry about it. Also, didn't I say this already? Don't call me young miss. Seriously, even before when we were in the student council, I had already told you to call me Hinajiku. Opening the .u. meant he retrieved a piece of card. It's his student card. Handling it, he chuckled. All right, then hereafter I will refer to you as Milady Hinajiku. She was about to show her satisfied smile, but seeing that he grinned and then shouted that out. Quickly he made his escape. Stunned, she got mad and grabbed her purse before giving chase. Stand right there. Hinajiku's mom just sat there on the sofa, watching the TV, listening to the squabble that would happen 2 or 3 times a day. She sighed and moaned. Must be nice to be young. The next day, Wu Yan came to school with Hinajiku. Using hanky-panky tactics, he managed to squirm his way into being in the same CLA.S.S as her. This is our newest student council member, Wu Yan. At the moment, there stood 1 male and 6 female inside the student council room. Certainly, from the bystanders' POV, the male looks like a winner in life that should be dragged out to be executed. But what they don't know, is that the male in this case wants to do nothing but jump down from the balcony just to get the H.E.L.L out of here. Hinajiku stood there and happily introduced him to the 5 girls. He has a smile plastered on his face during this session. On the surface, he's smiling, but inside of him, his heart has already turned to dust. TL, he's dead, Jim. After she's done with introducing him, one of the 5 girls who stood opposite to him with purple hair and a notebook inside her hand raised smiled and greeted him. I'm the student council president Kazumi Aika, pleased to meet you. A girl with grayish silver hair and GLA.S.SES who looked pretty fine looked at him with a serious stare. Right when he's about to feel numb from the P.R.I.C. king gaze, she nodded to him. Harukaze Shiharu. W.A. A new face, to be recommended into student council by Hina. TL, someone confirm the original nickname in anime or manga because I'm pretty sure it's not Little Hina as per Raw. He must be an incredible dude. This girl had purple 10-week stocks colored hair and twin tails. At first glance, one can tell she's an energetic girl. She's curiously studying him with a bubbly aura. That gaze, it's as if she found something interesting. I'm Sigawa Izumi, I will be in your care. Hanabishi Miki. This was a blue long-haired girl with dead fish eyes. Asake's Risa. This was a brown-haired girl who's giving him a thumbs up. Looking at all these girls filled who's basically asking him to hurl tsukumis, tears ran down his heart's cheeks. It's just recess and he was forcibly dragged to the student council room and he signed the slave contract, proudly becoming a member of the student council board. Originally he nodded nonchalantly to this request because he thought he would be able to spend more time with Kaiko-sama and increasing his favorability with her. But he came to regret it very quickly. This is because soon after, she brought these 5 grand G.O.dis, TL, lit, but it carries a more sarcastic and humorous tone, the joke being that these 5 are so infamous they are G.O.ds, while saying she wants to introduce them to each other. Given the choice he would rather give himself 2 slaps than to come here. These 5 are problem children. Kazumi Aiko looks warm, acts like an AIDS Hiko, but the thing is, as anyone who have watched Hate the Combat Butler knows, she's a girl, TL, Both Mandarin and J.A. Pains have the same meaning, and since this is describing an anime character's trait, I'm putting in the J.A.P term instead of black stomach ed. The notebook in her hand has a pretty cool name, it's called the. Exactly what it says on the tin, this has the weakness of everybody she met written down. One wouldn't even know when she sniffed them out, as long as she gets a hold of this, one wouldn't know when or how an untimely death would happen. And standing beside her, with a cool face, where she looks like nothing in the world could ever change her face, is the taciturn Harukaze Shiharu. Her inner ident.I.Tai is a very autistic girl. Why autistic? That's because though she may look completely composed, she has the soul of a maid. To hide her true self from others, she normally suppresses it within. Hanging out with her, who knows when he might be driven into psychosis by her. If it's just these two, it would still be okay. Be a little careful around Aika, be a little bit level-headed around Shiharu. With his profound understanding of 2D shoujos, he can still manage somewhat. The truly terrifying ones, however, are those. The three amiga grinning at him are Sigawa Izumi, Hanabishi Miki, and Asake's Risa. Respectively, half-dead corpse, TL, lit half-dead not alive, too much energy to spare. These three problem children are known as the Three Stooges of Heikuo Academy. United, they're not that big a deal. United, however, means that there will always be an incident. Basically, they will get into trouble. In the original work, one of the duo bearing the same T.I.Tle as magical indexes, Kamisha touch a T.I.T, TL, is.H.I.Tu not, lit Kamisha Shoujo touching hands, a joke about how his hands, which can break supernatural things, managed to break Red String of Fate, thereby gathering hordes of harem candidates. Hate always pick up the slack after them, that's why the three of them can go about their merry lives. But he definitely doesn't want to be the tragic guy to for them. Adding the perfect but dormant volcano-esque Kaikosama, this student council, is probably only habitable to resilient life forms like Hate. If only heaven would give me one more chance, surely I would. Yan, what are us.p.a. sing out for? Hurry up and greet them. A jade-like beautiful hand slapped his shoulder, rescuing him from his hallucinated tragedy. Looking at the unamused Hinajiku, he wants to cry, but somehow the tears won't come out. With a smile that can't get any more fake, he greeted them. Good day everyone, my name's Wu Yan, I'm a Chinese, I just came to Heikuo today, Hinajiku's butler, I will be in your care. Hinajiku's butler. Flabbergasted, the five looked at him and Hinajiku with a face of disbelief. In their heart, she's someone who's a perfect existence, academically good, excellent competencies, excelling at sports, good at housekeeping, with a countenance that make people's jaw drop. No matter how one looks at it, she doesn't look like she needs a butler to look after her. If anything, if it's her becoming a butler, that would make a far more reasonable choice. Now, a dude comes running from nowhere and announces himself to be her butler, not for anyone but for Hinajiku. How can that be? After being blown away, they recovered with a smile. Coming to his front, they cornered him. On their face. "Ne, Wu Yan-kun, why did you become Hina's butler? It doesn't make sense. Is there something going on behind the scenes? Why don't you fill us in on the details? As members of the same organization, we are henceforth brother in arms, don't try to hide anything from us. Did you maybe picked a fight with Hina, got your A.S.S handed to you and then fell for Hina's charm? Finally turning into her loyal supporter. SP. Chapter 17. On his way here, it doesn't matter whether they were playing soccer, chatting, reading or skirt chasing. The moment they laid their eyes on Wu Yan, their gaze fell on him. In their eyes, a flame of intense hatred burned, they grinded their teeth so hard it went baji, they look they can transform into a nasty hound any moment and pounce over to bite him. Feeling the stares which could bore thousands of holes in his body. As a LV-28 little super, he's honestly afraid. Hinagiku satisfyingly stretched her body and then fabulously swung her pink hair around. The moment she released that amount of charm, he could feel that the gazes intensified. He could only sigh and agonizingly face-palm. What's the matter? You keeping letting out sigh after sigh, you're going to turn into an old man at this rate, ya know. Glancing at him, she teased him so. Ugh. Half closing his eyes, he sighed with a body drained of energy. Even though I knew you were very popular, but who would have known once one really gets to know you, it's rather disconcerting just how popular you are. Giving him an odd look, she still don't understand what he's on about. He then turned his lips over to the side, signaling her to look over there, only now did she understand what he meant. She felt a little bit sorry while scratching the side of her face. Quickly she changed the conversation. Let's go home, I'm looking forward to tonight's dinner. Getting to the latter part, her eyes keep getting brighter and brighter, clearly while the girl was saying this to shift the conversation, her heart is actually really looking forward to it. He can only shake his head at her. NN. You head home first, I will head home a bit later. Stopping in her tracks, she turned and asked him. Why? Did you forget something in CLA.S.S? I will wait for you. TL, it's happening boys, get on the ship. Nope, I have a bit of a matter to attend to, so I was planning to go back a bit late. He regretted not being able to spend the time flirting with Kaiko-sama, but he really can't help it, duty calls. Some matter to attend to. Looking closely at his face, she tried to gauge what his intentions are. Only until he started getting a bit uncomfortable from her stare did she finally say it. If I recall, somebody once said he didn't have a place to go, that's why he wants to be a butler. Tell me, where can you go now? Looking at her lovely face, he stepped back 2 steps while laughing awkwardly. Ma, it's just a small matter, I will be done in a jiffy, I think it's best if you head home first. Puffing up her cheeks, she narrowed her greenish-yellow eyes. Staring at his face a while, she turned her head with a cold humph. If you don't want to say it, fine. Just remember, if there's anything you need help with, just confide in me. I don't know if I will be useful or not, but it can't hurt to have more people on the job. I know, if there's anything milady can help with, I will definitely come to you. He jested. I will be going ahead now, remember to come back early. He instantly gave her a funny look. That's when she realized what she said just now sounds like what a wife would say to one's husband. Her cheeks grew red, noticing the funny look still on his face. She cried out against his funny face. Hurry and go do your thing. I will be taking my leave now, bye-bye. Feeling his continuing presence would bring harm to him, he instantly turned around and scuttled. When he was no longer in sight, she withdrew her angry glare while muttering something. Sooner or later I will dig all your secrets out. At this moment, he is at the old dormitory. A cold flash shined and Kusanagi sword appeared on his hands, which he then promptly affixed behind his waist. Unlike his free days in the past, now that he's studying in Heikuo, how can a student bring a sword around with him? Given this school has a lot of freaks, screw swords, some might have brought a gun. He however has no interest in taking part as a member of the cast of freaks. So, he used 10,000 IP to buy a must-have legendary tool in every novel ever, S.P.A.Ce ring. At first he thought those rings are ubiquitous in novels, so they shouldn't be that expensive. He was wrong. So wrong. Ignoring all others, just this ring costed him 10k. Even so, compared to the other rings which have nigh infinite S.P.A.Ce, this one has only 100 cubic meters approximately. What he can do besides sucking up and buying it? If he didn't buy one now, he would still need to sooner or later. Since he's basically homeless, he can't stash his stuff anywhere, a storage item is absolutely needed. Pushing the door open, he went in. Looking at the ragged and dilapidated place, he opened the system's probing function. If it's within his field of vision, nothing can escape his probing. Given that it has yokai in it, he should raise his guard just in case the enemy knows how to turn invisible. The sky outside is slowly turning dark, and he essentially walked all over the old dormitory, but there was no yokai in sight. He can't help but feel mystified. This surely can't be, the system said so, so it can't be wrong. This yokai leader should definitely be here, why haven't he seen it yet? It can't be that one has to wait until nightfall for the DAM.net thing to come out. Scratching his head, he looked at the sky and decisively abandoned the thought of waiting until nightfall. Kaiko-sama already said it, she is looking forward a lot to tonight's dinner. If he isn't home by dinner time to make the meal, he isn't sure whether the favorability with her would drop, but most definitely he would get the cold shoulders for 1 or 2 days. Just for the sake of a DAM.net ghost, he won't sacrifice his thing with Kaiko-sama, definitely won't. Had he knew beforehand, he would have just went ahead with his conquest when the meter was just half. Why did he have to go for full love-o-meter? Isn't this just asking for trouble? Beating himself up inside, he continued thinking. Opening the menu list, he started coming up with a better measure. After a while, he turned up a side of his lips, flipping his hands, a dimly glowing light ball appeared above his palm. Fluorescent ball, have the ability to track mysterious energies, as long as it's within a certain radius. Any abnormal energies such as curse, chi of death, demonic chi, and the like would be detected and sought out by fluorescent ball, 1000 IP. Ignoring the lame name, the effect is pretty good, at least that's what it looks like from the description. Squeezing the fluorescent ball in his hands, it felt soft, like girls B.O.O.B.S. This is what he thought despite having never touched a girl's B.O.O.B before. He tossed the ball. The ball hanged in the air for a bit, dimly shining it floated up and down like a fish. After that, the floating ball stopped and hovered towards a certain direction. Lucky me, it works. He let out a relieved sigh, and swiftly followed it. The ball's speed slowed until gradually it went from a running speed to a walking pace. The ball continued to flow towards the inner parts of the old dormitory. Drifting and drifting it went. Finally arriving at the innermost part of the dormitory, the fall finally stopped its momentum and turned its direction going into the ground. Looking at the floor, he was stunned. What did this mean? Is this ball floating towards H.E.L.L? What the F.U.C.K? I told you to find ghost chi, not go to the underworld. Get your A.S.S back here. Throwing Tsukumai, he looked helpless, but what can he do? Might as well dig and find out. Drawing his sword, he tapped the floor with it. Startled by the hollow sound, he grinned. Evidently there's another place behind here. Breathing deeply, he slashed the floor. Pa! The floor broke and dust flew everywhere. Holding his nose with his hands, he stepped back and swiped the dust away with a swing of his sword. The dust cloud went away and what appeared before him is a tunnel that can allow the passage of one person. And at the end of this tunnel, he can see the dim light from the fluorescent ball. Looks like the ball stopped there after it entered the ground. This shows that the mysterious energy the ball was chasing after came from here. Popping his head inside, he looked inside the tunnel. Seeing as there's nothing besides the light of the ball, he braved up and jumped down. He landed and raised his head to look in front of him. His heart jumped at the sight in front of him. A great hall spread out in front of him. He estimated that the area appears to be as big as the old dormitory. There's only dirt and dust here, in addition to a few little cuties. A giant crow flying around the ceiling, a floating snake with a GA.S.SY form and a skeleton looking at him. Suddenly faced with the scene, he jumped in fright. It has only been 3 months since starting the grind, so he's still pretty much a normal human. And a human being afraid of a ghost is pretty normal. Holding his chest, he grabbed his sword tighter and looked at the giant crow almost half the size of men. General Eating Crow, LV10. LV10? So it's just a mook. That yokai leader or something, can't be just a LV-10 right? Curling his lips, he looked at the GA.S.SY floating giant snake. Wandering corpse spirit, LV-10. Spirit. Isn't it a snake? But it has a point, a snake won't float, and it most definitely isn't in gas form. But it looks like it isn't the yokai leader either. In the original work, did Sajinomi Yaisumi really dealt with these things? Where's the frigging ghost? Sighing, he looked at the skeleton and went. Delicate skeleton, LV-10. You're just a skeleton, why emulate delicate shoujos? How are you delicate? How are you tender? Still stuck with his astonished face, he almost let his sword slip out of his hand. He really wanted to ask, where did these names come from? Is it from the yokai leader? A demon's interest really differs from that of a human. But perhaps to them, this rough-looking skeleton may very be delicate. Should he ask them where's the yokai leader? He's conflicted whether or not to do so. However, even if he wanted to leave, the other party won't let him do as he please. The general eating crow caught, and he saw the wandering corpse spirit and skeleton jolting before pouncing towards him. Sure, you guys can eat humans, but please size your opponent up. You're just LV-10 mooks, just because you're demons you think you can defeat a human like me. After the corpse spirit appeared before him, he reversed his grip on the sword and decapitated the thing. Grabbing the skeleton by the skull, he yanked and slashed, sending it eloping with the corpse spirit. Looking at the crow, he mocked. What? Weren't you pretty noisy just now? Why don't you call up some more B.I.T.C.He's? And he would very soon have his smug grin wiped off his face. A giant horde of skeleton popped out of the ground in streams. Shakingly they stood up and fell into organized ranks. On the walls to his side, a horde of wandering corpse poured out. Mouth wide, he just silently uttered against the general eating crow. I will be damned, it really summoned them. TL, moral of the story, don't tempt fate. Also, isn't the horde of demons/yokai reminiscent of a certain tea-drinking trickster? Chapter 18. Looking at the hall filled with skeletons and gaseous snakes, Wu Yan is completely speechless. It really is hard to imagine, with so many LV-10 yokai staying in Heikuo, how can the students of Heikuo still be able to enjoy their comfortable school lives? Logically speaking, these cute little fugulis should have turned Heikuo into a chaotic Ma.S.S burial mound. Heikuo has a lot of strong individuals, that's for sure. Like LV-18 Hinajiku, her crazy sister also has a LV of 15, those butlers with special abilities should at the very least also have LV-10. Be that as it is, in Heikuo, the majority is made up of normal human, they're all LV-0. Against a horde of LV-10 yokai army, they won't even know what hit them. In this kind of context, why did they stay here obediently without storming out and creating a big mess? Did the yokai leader have other plans? Or perhaps, is there some sort of special circuit which is stopping them from going out? In the air, the general eating crow cawed ominously and the hordes of skeleton and corpse spirit rushed at him. The scene looked like a cavalry charge, it made him let out a drop of cold sweat. It's just a legion of LV-10 yokais, but with such a number, he don't know if he will get lynched to death, but that shock and awe element is definitely there. Barely laughing, he tightened his grip. In a split second, his position is completely surrounded by hostiles. Decapitating 4 skeletons, he tried retreating, but there's a wall behind him. Backed into a wall, he can only push forward. Grabbing a skeleton, he used it as a meat shield to plow his way through. Making a path out of the skeleton mobs, he stopped and flinged the skeleton in his hands at a mob of skeletons, again blasting a bunch of skeletons away. Sensing a cold sensation behind him, he jumped. At the same time, a few corpse spirit crashed against his previous position, creating a dust cloud. Using them as a foothold, he stepped forward while swinging his sword, cutting down them before making a quick escape from there. His previous position is once again assaulted by corpse spirits. He twisted his body and leaped a few times before finding a foothold. He turned around and cleaved the mob once more. He's slightly losing his breath. He had never encountered this kind of encirclement before. He had only ever challenged isolated demonic beasts to solo duels before chopping them to pieces. When did he ever have the chance to experience group fights? Put into a group battle, he quickly noticed his weakness: he doesn't have AoE, area of effect, skills. Employing hit and run tactics, he really had no other alternatives. At this rate, either he gets lynched to death or he will tire himself to death. This endless horde of mobs, when will he finish slashing his way through them? Must buy an AoE skill. Haggardly dodging attacks, he opened the menu searching for a suitable power. The general eating crow looked like it lost its patience and screamed once more. The Yakai army then raised their offense intensity like they just took some adrenaline shots. Reflected in his rapidly narrowing pupil, the army slammed against him altogether. Bangag! In the giant underground hall, a big dust cloud was stirred up, covering the entire hall. The whole place fell silent. Chaotic return. A low voice came from the heart of the skeleton and corpse spirit heap. Along with the voice, the army started to shake. In the area closest to the center, the skeletons and spirit were minced into pieces. To horizon waltz. A giant formless round arc radiated from the center. Be it skeleton or corpse spirit, anything that touched the arc was sliced to pieces. Their companions all died in droves, turning into sc.r.a.ps on the floor. Until 1/4 of the skeletons and spirits are wiped out did the round arc finally dim down, revealing his silhouette. His appearance might appear worn, but he didn't really suffer any damage. He managed to buy the ability in time to save himself from a pinch. Chaotic return to horizon waltz, TL, any better sounding names, sword/skill, using a hard to describe trajectory to move the sword, forming a circular arc slash with the atmosphere around oneself. It can be used as a close range as well as ranged attack, expressed in the form of a chi slash, 5000 AP. He hatefully stared at the skeletons and corpse spirits in front of him. Even for just a moment, they managed to make him feel the presence of death. He had encountered it before when hunting demonic beasts, but encountering and up-close confrontation are two separate things. G.O.DDAM.net Skeletons and fart snakes. Just because this young master, TL, is not flipping out, you're going to treat me like I'm Doraemon. Holding the sword with both hands, he raised Kusanagi sword. Leaving a slight trace behind, the invisible atmosphere began to coat the sword, condensing into a light circle around it. He aimed at the place with the most hostiles and swung his sword. Chaotic return to horizon waltz. The light circle emitted a brilliant light and shot out from the sword in the shape of an arc. Anything it touched was turned into powder mixed in with the dust swirling around in the air. Once again exterminating AF.U.C.K ton of skeletons and corpse spirits, he chuckled and a light circle swirled around his sword once more before being flung out. After 3 times of chaotic return to horizon, he decimated the Yakai army and made the giant hall vacant once again. Whew! Spitting out a tired breath, he looked mercilessly upon the remaining enemy in front of him, the general eating crow that's still flying furiously around over there. Putting some force into his leg, he sprung towards it at high speed. Under the sound of wind sing him, he arrived in front of the crow and stabbed it in the chest, spilling its green blood. Mewling pathetically, it fell on the ground after he pulls out the sword. Jerking twice, it stopped moving. Ding! Congratulations on leveling up. Current LV is 29. With a light sensation, his slightly fatigued body returned to full status. It's like he just took a bath in a recovery pool. It feels pretty damn good. Although a bunch of mooks without a speech line came out and got pummeled into dust, along with the crow that cause and was promptly wasted, they gave him a material amount of EXP. Though they don't give much EXP being LV10, they made up for it in numbers. Even if there's not 1,000 of them, a conservative estimate would put them in units of hundreds. Beeling into a giant ball EXP, the last bird was the last sliver of EXP required to push him up 1 LVL, he can chalk this up as having a fruitful trip. Stepping on the slain crow, he dusted his shoulders before giving it a discriminating look. It was pretty good at calling for friends, but so weak on its own. Even those skeletons and fart snakes could ram, you can't even dodge for S.H.I.T, and you call yourself a person. Oh wait, no. Yokai. Maybe it's because his behavior P.I.S. set off the supposedly dead crow, but the crow suddenly started twisting intensely. It looks like something is trying to crawl its way out of it. Seeing as the situation turned sour, he dodged swiftly to the side. Pot, the crow exploded, spilling its blood all over the floor. With the explosion, streams of dark air starting condensing into a CLU.S. Tur out of its blood. With such an odd scene happening in front of him, he was at a loss of what to do. What is that thing? Was it due to that thing that the Mook Crow could command the horde of skeletons and crows? What's for sure, is that this black CLU.S. Tur is not the crow, since he leveled up after killing it. Had he not defeated it, the system won't give any experience, even if it did revive. Only after it has lost its ability to battle does the system grant EXP for it. In other words, if this black CLU.S. Tur is indeed the crow, then it evidently could still fight, which means it has not lost, so there shouldn't have been any EXP granted. The black CLU.S. Tur slowly grew big until every drop of green blood has turned into dark air. Did it stop growing and started condensing? Briefly, a gigantic skeleton covered in dark chi appeared in front of him. It looked like the skeleton from before, except it's twice as big as him. The skeleton let out a weird laugh, and along with it the dark chi echoed along with it as if it's alive. Yokai leader, LV30. A light flashed brightly from his eyes. M2 completion requirement has appeared. As expected, a CLA.S.sick game scenario. Only after clearing out the small fries will the boss appear. This is an ancient truth that won't change for eons. Lightly cackling, he can feel his blood starting boil up. Surrounded by dark chi, the one size bigger yokai leader derided him as if he's a clown about to jump down from a bridge. TL, making a fool out of himself, not knowing his place, it is letting its contempt known without holding back. He retorted in his heart, I'm not laughing at how fugly you look and you dare laugh at me. Doing a few somersault in the air, it continued chuckling before suddenly dashing in front of him and swiping its gigantic bone claw at him. Tensing up, he raised his sword and stabbed at it. Peng! A monstrous sound resounded from the collide between Kusanagi's sword and bone claw. Held in deadlock, a Ma.S. dots of shockwave spread out from the event center, stirring up a wave of dust. The area around him and yokai leader began to crack radially, showing the intense impact of this collision. Keeping his sight locked on the enemy, he placed some strength into his hands and with a fling he parried the bone claw away before leaping away. Putting a distance between them, he flexed his arms to dispel the numb sensation. Should we say as expected of LV30? Even with a defensive maneuver, his hands still went numb. But this should be within expectation. LV30 is within the range of Tier 4. With a tier gap of difference, he is at a disadvantage. Him being able to skip tiers and fight higher tier enemies before was due largely to the fact that the skirmish happened on a lower LVL. Tier 2 LV15 vs LV20 Tier 3 had a big gap of abilities, but it was still amendable by a few other conditions. Back then it was his sword and kendo master that got him through the crisis. LV25 Slime wasn't using Dochi out of carelessness and he got his hand cut off by him, causing the scales of victory to tilt towards him. Had they really fought for real, the LV18 him back them would have to pay a price even if he won. Along with the increase in levels, in the later stage, Skipping levels to challenge might still be possible, but skipping tiers would be impossible unless he obtained a S-grade equipment. Those discussions are saved for a later time. Right now he knows that the enemy is higher than him by 1 LV and just a tier above him. He still can win. With Kendo Master, impeccable memory, chaotic return to horizon waltz, Kusanagi sword. All of these factors are with him. With them he's confident he can do this. What amount of EXP will you bring me? So he pondered while sneering. Sword beams, when suck blade, motherfucker goes ranged. Chapter 19. The winds bellowed and a sharp katana bri.m.m.i.n.g with cold brilliance slashed the Yakai leader's body. Abruptly, the sword coming down on its body stopped just a centimeter away from its body. With clenched teeth, he placed more strength into Kusanagi's sword, but it just won't reach its body made of bones. He can see clearly that close to the point of contact, black gas is seething there. This gas is only about as thick a strand of hair, but its tensile strength is like that of a copper wall iron barrier, TL, basically super tough, blocking his attack from connecting. Without given a chance for surprise, a bony hand bigger than a fan slapped towards him. He dodged by leaping and took some distance. The bony hand slapped the floor with a hard pang, making a small crater in the floor. Stopping his backward momentum, he swooped forward with blade dancing in his hands. He slashed at the Yakai leader's chest while it hadn't retrieved its bony hand. Right before the attack went through, black gas began to ripple on its body once more, turning into black strands rapidly and coiling around the sword. He felt like he wasn't slashing at just any gas, more like he's slashing against some kind of spongy leather. Every force exerted by his sword is lost in just a few moments. Stopping just a centimeter away, he can't move another inch forward. What the? This black gas. Ducking, he dodged a slap from the enemy. Turning his sword, he stabbed right at in its shoulder. Just like before, his stab was stopped by the black gas. Damn. He cursed while thrusting the sword with all his might, pushing the Yakai leader away. Stroking his sword, he glared at the enemy, or more accurately its black gas churning around its body. In his simulation, he thought that under the circustances of holding a mainstream weapon, having Kendo Master to enhance his attacks, impeccable memory to locate the weak points and chaotic return to horizon waltz as a sure kill method, he could beat it despite it being one tier higher. It should have been an even match in any case. Looking at the attacks which the Yakai leader can't respond to in time, this would prove that his A.S. assumptions weren't off by much. What isn't expected, is that those black gas have protective properties to them. Rather than a shield, it acts more like a defensive layer, completely resisting his attack force. He's getting a little bit furious from the fruitless A.S. salts. He's faster than the opponent, but his attacks might as well have been decorations. At this rate, he's going to tire himself out in a battle of attrition. As one would expect of someone from the Skeleton and Corpse Spirit Party, even when he's alone he's still planning to play the game of attrition. Wretched piece of vulgarite. TM, really vulgar like his mother, yet changed it? It chuckled while T.I.Slitting its neck. Opening and closing its jaw rapidly, letting out caca, it floated up and swept towards him. Moving his body to the side, he dodged its A.S. salt. While it's brushing PAS.S his body, he slashed his sword down and hacked at its back, which is instantly blocked by the black gas. Twisting its body rapidly, it swooped at him like a missile. He can only dodge with little margin before it proceeded to reverse its body one again. The Yakai looked like a homing missile, incessantly ramming against him while he's on the defensive side, turning and dodging. The tables have turned and he who once held the attacking front became the one focused on dodging and defending. Dealing with the endless onslaught, his face became more and more discolored. Put in a position when one can't attack and not attacking isn't an option either. TL, redundant double negatives, just read as between a rock and a hard place. What is one supposed to do in this case? Scrutinizing its body, he is trying to use impeccable memory to note down its attack pattern and look for its weakness. As the onslaught went on, the holes on the ground started to increase with loud booms occurring all over the hall with dust flew all over the place. Ha, ha. Once again doting the missile-like attack, he began to heave lightly. The hostile is not afraid of his attacks, add that with its unpredictable marionette-esque movement, had he not remembered its movement with impeccable memory, he would have been hit by now. And from the looks of the crater on the floor, if it really connected, it's not laughing matter. Holding his sword tighter in his hand, the atmosphere around it began to stir. A slight breeze began to stir, it coiled up the sword, and as the wind condensed, it started to become more and more impressive, finally becoming a light circle swirling around the sword. Using his leg as a pivot, he bolted towards the oncoming enemy. Right before coming in contact with it, he lifted the sword and chopped towards it. Chaotic return to horizon waltz. Bam! Circular arc enveloped the Yokai leader with sword chi, and at the same time a dull explosion resounded. Carried by the sword chi, it was slammed against the wall, buried by countless rock debris. Was it effective? With a slight pant, he stabbed the sword into the ground while looking at the rock mound that's slowly growing larger. Honestly, if this didn't work, then he's out of ideas. Besides running, there's only the choice of looking for a solution in the system. Too bad though, he tried searching already, but either the items aren't fit for purpose or he didn't have enough points for it. So this attack carried a gambling notion. He's spotting a hopeful expression, but he knows, perhaps this strike didn't have any effect. This stemmed from the pressure that hasn't reduced much since the battle started. Suddenly, narrowing his pupil, he bitterly laughed. From the rubbles, it crawled out gradually like a worm. Going with its head raised up, it slowly crawled towards him. Tensing up, he raised his sword and resolutely faced the enemy once more. There's N.O. Body who's not afraid of death, he's afraid as well, very afraid in fact. But, for the sake of surviving, for the sake of one day stepping his foot once more on that piece of land known as Silveria, and for the sake of going home to make dinner for Kaiko-sama, he must fight. Leaning over slightly, he prepared to rush. But focusing his gaze, a hint of surprise flashed across his face before it turned into excitement. Ignoring the law of universal gravitation, its limbs flipped and like a machine it transformed its bony form into a standing position, the black gas rustling intensely on its body. There's no observable change on its body compared to before, but with impeccable memory he remembers. Before the strike, and after, the enemy's black gas has thinned a bit. In other words, this black gas has limits. Smirking, he raised his chest, grabbed his sword, and charged out with a powerful stride. In a blink of an eye, he reached the Yokai leader, a cold glint flashed in his eyes before his blade brightened and shot out an arc. An intense collision rang, the Yokai leader was blasted away by the aftershock. Before it is about to collide with the wall, he appeared once more in front of the still flying enemy, his shining sword swung down once more. The arc carried it crashing into the wall, giving off a weird wail. It was embedded into the wall, leaving only its skeleton head visible. Appearing above its head with a shining katana, just as the Yokai leader lifted his head, the katana came down on its head. The wall was smashed to smithereens with big and small pieces dancing about in the air. The pieces came raining down on the floor once again, raising a dust storm and making craters all over the floor. The poor floor, which got riddled with holes, became even more desolate and demolished. Gasping for air, he looked at the skeleton, who is without harm but had its black air reduced to nothing. He tiredly laughed at it. In a mere 5 seconds, he consecutively used 3 times Chaotic Return to Horizon Waltz. Although Chaotic Return to Horizon Waltz is nothing more than a pure slashing skill, it doesn't need any dochi or supporting skill, but it does consume a lot of stamina. However, it isn't for nothing, the spongy GA.S.SY defense has been eliminated, it's totally worth it. Ding! Congratulations on leveling up. Current level is 30. A level 30 yokai leader managed to increase his level to 29. At level 30, he's a tier 4 now. Swaying his arms, he nodded while feeling a bit fatigued. He has leveled up twice within a day. This hasn't happened for a while because as one's level increased the required experience would increase as well. Grabbing his Kusanagi sword he walked in front of the yokai leader, looking at its immobile body he remained silent. It seems, the black gas is used to support its mobility, without it the thing can't move at all. Seriously. He helplessly shook his hands while giggling. Bro, it's pitiful that I must kill you even though we don't have any grudge against each other. But our ties as one of human and as one of a ghost are crossed. For my mission, you must die once more, don't blame me for it, just remember to be a good person next time. Why did he feel like he said something similar before? Screw it n.o. Body cares. TL, ref back to Wu Yan vs Wolf. Feeling helpless about it, he sterned his expression, reversing his grip on the sword he chopped down with much force, completely decapitating the yokai leader. Ding. M2 completed. Obtained 10,000 EP, 10,000 IP, 10,000 AP 10,000 SP. Ding. Obtained X1 Mysterious Crystal Fragment. Ding. M3 initiated. He was shocked at the system notification. Item drop from fighting monster? It can't be, why now when none dropped before? A solid sensation appeared in his hand, he quickly checked his palm and found an alluring white crystal in his palms giving off a golden glow. Mysterious Crystal Fragment. M1, infiltrate Heikuo Academy and become a high school student, completed. M2, slay the yokai leader residing in the old dormitory. M3, find the other half of Mysterious Crystal Fragment and merge it into a complete Mysterious Crystal. Rewards, randomly pick a reward from equipments, items, abilities, summon. The other half of Crystal Fragment? Now how in the H.E.L.L would I know where the F.U.C.K it is? Whatever, might as well go home and make dinner for Hinajiku, otherwise he will have to suffer her wrath. Sighing dejectedly, he stored the crystal in his S.P.A.Ce ring and left hastily. Chapter 20. By the time Wu Yan went back home, the sky has already darkened. Looking at the front door, he didn't have the courage to open it. It's not yet dinner time, but the time is pretty close already. Ignoring the fact that he came home so late, and he hadn't a clue how to explain his whereabouts before now, if there's no dish on the table by dinner time he will receive a few shoulder throw for sure. Now he truly regrets feeding Kaiko-sama until she turned into a. The one getting hurt in the end will only be him. If she's patiently waiting for him then he would accept it with arms wide. However, reality is ab.i.t.c.h, what she's waiting for is only the fine cuisines. Arera, so you're back, Yan-kun. A gentle voice made him jump out of surprise. Looking the owner of the voice he released a relieved sigh and he put on a smiling face. I came home a bit late, I'm really sorry, madam. Under the scrutiny and smile of Hinajiku's mom, his body jolted, he felt like he has been seen through. Laughing gently while covering her mouth with one hand, she urged him. I don't particularly mind it, it's just that, shouldn't you be preparing our meal right about now? C.R.A.P. Kaiko-sama isn't the only glutton, her mother was raised into one as well. I will go and make preparations at once. While dryly laughing he asked. Oh yes, where's the young mistress? She's in the room, she was harping on about you, little Wu Yan-kun, don't you think it would be wise to go check up on her? For your sake that is, Listening to that Haraguro-like laugh and her disturbing appellation, he gulped and wryly laughed. Then. I will be checking up on her. Be careful now. She kindly advised so, as to what to be careful of, well, he can more or less guess. Feeling a bit of an irritation on his scalp, he walked toward her room. Should he go in all smiley? Or should he go in with an apologetic face? His hand stopped rigidly on the dork.n.o.b, thinking in his head how to minimize the extent of injury. As expected, I should go in with a puppy face. Maybe Kaiko-sama would be merciful after seeing my pitiful face. She would reduce the number of punches by 2. Maybe. Making up his mind, he pushed open the door. Hinajiku sa. Looking at the scene, his words got stuck in his throat and he became incoherent while opening his eyes wide right there. On the other side, her face was full of shock at seeing him barging in. She froze there with a shirt in her hand, completely immobile. Pink hair held to the back of her head, pearly and tender white skin. It has al.u.s. Tur so smooth anyone would want to touch it. Her face is red all over, making the usual serious her look that much cuter. The shirt she was holding in her hand dropped when he came in. So she stood in that stance with no shirt in her outstretched hands, facing him. Au naturel. In every sense of the word, completely bare-skinned in front of him. The place fell silent. Looking at each other like this, none of them recovered. He cried inside his heart. So this kind of cliché really happens on main characters. I can die without regrets now. Still maintaining his posture, his eyes moved at an incredible speed, scanning Kaiko-sama from top to bottom. At this point he reflected on something. The me who bought impeccable memory, good job. Completely capturing the beautiful scenery before him and story it away. He satisfyingly nodded, moving his gaze over to her chest. However, he showed a woeful face. She eventually recovered, dyeing her face pink. Her body started to become flushed with a tinge of pink under his gaze. Just as she was about to shout, she noticed the woeful face on him when he saw her chest. Her flushed face swapped with one of furious bashfulness. Still blushing, she walked in front of him with great strides, ignoring the fact that she's still in her birthday suit. She got close to him while grabbing his collar and howled at him. Don't you know how to knock? Also, what's with the sad face? Are you displeased with something? Ah. Amidst the roars, he finally managed to move his sight away from her body. Looking at her red face with eyes on the verge of spewing out fire, he can't help but shrink his neck and gulp. Noticing that she's exploding, he finally called out. No. I am not dissatisfied or anything. You look great, very pretty. Very charming. Growing redder, her anger has not subsided a bit. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking about. Aren't you thinking that it's small? Shaking his hands vigorously, he tried to smooth talk his way out. Hinajiku, don't get mad. Small ones have their charm to them. Flat chests are precious rarities. A lot of males like them small as well. You don't need to feel ashamed over something like this. Looking at his earnest face, her fire began to die down, and with a red face she confirmed with him. Is that true? It's true, most definitely so. At least I like them very much. I dig em so bad. She's like a barrel of explosive, just a jab away from going off. He's stronger than her by a lot, but he can't ever retaliate against her. It's better to coax her like this. Besides, he's speaking the truth, so what if she's flat? Isn't it still in the strike zone of many otakus? Furthermore, her appeal isn't that small either, otherwise, she wouldn't have become the charmer of 10,000s at Heikuo Academy. TL, close English would be diva or idol, but a charmer of 10,000s sound good as well. Flat chests are precious rarities. The way he says it isn't wrong. With that being said, he moved his gaze onto her body once more. Not looking is for suckers, since the person herself don't mind and she's stranding in front of him like this, might as well let his eyes enjoy some more tofu. TL, eating someone's tofu, take advantage of circustances or situation to thoroughly enjoy oneself either through touch or observation. In this case, the eye candy that is the pink-haired G.O.Dis's body. But the person himself doesn't know that his "I like them very much" had a great effect on her. Stupefied, a weird sensation grew in her heart. The anger disappeared from her face, leaving only embarrassment behind. Letting go of his collars, she backpedaled and she was going to say something, but she saw his ogling eyes. It suddenly returned to her that she's not wearing anything. Inside her heart she wished somebody would put her out of her misery. Hastily she picked up the clothes on the floor and blocked the eyesight that seemed to have substance. She can feel his eyes, and blocked her tender white body before panicking. Why are you still here? Get out. Sighing, he showed a regrettable expression on his face and there was much reluctance in his eyes. She wanted to cry so bad, but for want of tears, can't. She could only pick up object near her to fling at him. Stop looking. Get out of here. He dodged her attack while guffawing before closing the door behind him and wiping off the sweat on his head. Mamma mia, that was too stimulating. I thought I would be getting the cane. But, the result, unexpectedly, was benefits. Must be my lucky day. I finished M2, level up twice, obtained Kaiko-sama's benefits. Maybe I should go around the street a few times to see if I have some peach blossom luck. Luck with the ladies / opposite sex, but normally used referring to ladies instead of dudes. So he just stood there at her door laughing vulgarly. Her door slowly opened, revealing a blushing Hinajuku. She was wearing a childish pajama as she walked out the room, glaring at him. Dryly laughing, he took a few steps back. She wasn't waiting to settle the scores after autumn, right? Serving revenge on a cold plate. Forget everything you saw just now, she uttered with much grudge. He retorted straight away after hearing her. How can that be? I won't forget it as long as I live. At such a shameless answer, she lowered her head with forelock covering her eyes, her body began trembling. It was at this moment that he knew, he f.u.c. Get up. Smelling the foul wind and b.l.o.o.d.y rain, approaching carnage, his hair stood on ends and he tried squirming his way out. Forgetting is out of the question, but I definitely won't tell a second person. The two fell silent after that. After staying taciturn for a while, she finally lifted her head. You mean it? Super duper mean it, absolutely manifold true. Not just absolutely true, it's true 10 to the power of 20, who would share this kind of benefit with anyone else? This kind of event should only entertain him. What's more, this isn't just anyone's, it's Kaiko-sama's. If I hear that a third party finds out about this, you dead. She threatened him after seeing him so serious, finally managing to escape from her embarrassment. She just gave him a cold humph along with that line. He nodded rapidly to her before moving his eyes over to her body. Today might just be the worst day she had ever experienced. Multiple times has she blushed, that the times she blushed is approaching her lifetime count. Noticing his eyes going up and down on her body, it felt like she was naked before him. Without hesitation she brought her hands up to shield her bra.s.t.s while shooting a glare at him. What are you looking at? Will you only be satisfied after looking a few more times? G.O.D, that would be nice. The line slipped from his true thoughts. You. Eyes wide she lifted her fingers to point shakingly at him. As the N.O.Bli Academy's student council president, where would she find this kind of shameless existence in Heikuo Academy, where everybody's very self-aware of mannerisms? In her mind it should have went something like this: she tells him to forget all about it, and he would do so in consideration of her dignity. Who would have thought that he's so shameless? She was led by the nose to the present field. Completely fooled by him. Triggered, very triggered. Very soon, she would elucidate him on what nozo no dai means. Unleashing her fury, lifting the iron fist of justice, with a bam it landed on his face and the little b.I.T.C.H was laid on the floor with a peach blossom burgeoning on his face. Stomping him twice she turned around fabulously and headed to the dining room. He opened his eyes after she walked away. As a level 30 mini super, How can he get his A.S.S handed to him by a level 18 Hinajuku? And she totally held back on her hits. He just went along with her while playing possum, otherwise she might really just die from her suppressed anger and embarrassment. It feels more tiring than the bout with the yakais. Patting his chest he uttered so with much emotion. But if it can be done, he would rather trade the EXP with the yakais for a few more benefits like this one. Her body, if one ignores the chest factor, it's really it can't be in words. Giving off a few rounds of wolfish hee-hee, he jumped back on his feet and followed the direction Hinajuku went before promptly stopping. The meals aren't prepared yet. Chapter 21. After Kaiko-sama made it rain benefits, her originally normal attitude became abnormal. How so? The past her always spotted a dignified and level-headed front. From time to time one can also see her go berserk, ever since he got to know her, except for the few times he managed to make her laugh, he has never seen her blushing face. This is normal. She became abnormal after having her tofu eaten by him. Being taken advantage of, in said case, being seen naked, I don't see what's the big deal, so I can't relate. Every time she sees Wu Yan, she would go red without fail. Even after a few days after the event happened, she still hasn't recovered from the trauma and she would become flushed at first sight of him. Moreover, they were pretty cool back then, able to bust each other's ball while talking. But now, every time they talk, it would basically be him doing the talking and she would just keep her head down and meekly listen to him. Now he's getting a bit anxious because he can't guess what she's thinking about. It would get him wondering each and every time for countless times. In the end it always arrive at one sentence, it's a girl's heart, you're better off not trying. And the same thing happened today. After eating breakfast, the two prepared to go to school. Swallowing the last of his meal, he went out of the house only to see Hinajuku standing there waiting for him. I'm done, shall we go? Seeing him walking over, she can't help but blush, stirring him up very deeply. What a pure young maiden, it's been so many days and she still remembers that event. This is most certainly a CLA.S.sical case of one's waist not hurting when he's the one standing and talking. Talking the talk is one thing, walking the talk is another. Armchair expert, practice is different from theory. It ought be easy to forget the event, but in reality no, it's not. Rigidly turning her head away she muttered, "Well, let's go, we're going to be late." Looking at the sky that has just turned bright for not long, he merely responded with a serious nod. Yes, we're going to be late." On the way to school, he kept trying to tease her in an effort to make her laugh, but all she did was listening without a peep, making him feel very awkward. Arriving at Heikuo Academy, she recovered from her stroke. She was astonished at the presence of someone before her. The person is coming out of a super luxurious car. She's small, and this is not for literary purposes, she's really small, looks like 12 or 13 years old, blonde hair tied into very long twin tails. She has a very nasty look on her face, staring at Heikuo Academy, as if the school is an asylum rather than a school. Behind her, a girl with hair so black it's almost blue, wearing a waf.u.ku, the beautiful girl who is more or less the same size, walked out the car with her. She's looking over the twin tail in front of her with a gentle face. Using the sleeves of her waf.u.ku she covered her lower face, reminiscent of an ancient era's princess. Nagi. Hearing Hinajuku's shout, the two looked around and saw an astonished Hinajuku and Wu Yan, who looks like he has just seen a ghost. The see a ghost here is not surprise or anything like that, it's more like dam.n, it's that ho again expression of cursing. "Oh, it's just you, Hinajuku." The girl called Nagi by her just gave her a casual greeting. "What's up with your expression and reaction?" With twitching lips she chastised her. "Good morning, Miss Hinajuku." "Good morning, Isumi." "That's right, These two are the well-known Ajaus, Sanzinan Nagi, and Sajinomi ya Isumi. Sanzinan Nagi, level 0. Sajinomi ya Isumi, level 30. Sanzinan Nagi, a sole child of the Sanzinan family, like Lulu she's doted upon by many. She has a grandfather who always teases her but essentially means well and loves her very deeply. How can he not know of her when she's number one mistress of this world and the mistress of this world's MC? And though the other one is not as famous as Nagi, from Wu Yan's POV, Isumi's more interesting than the other one. One can see just how out of the ordinary she is with level 30 abilities. She's just 12 or 13 at most, but she's on the same tier as him. This is mostly due to her inheriting the excellent bloodline of her family and having a great amount of spiritual power at her disposal. But can one really expect more Bada.S.Siri from a 12-13-year-old girl? He's thinking maybe she did finish off the Yokai leader in the original work. Understandable since she's level 30, same as the Yokai leader. Also her exorcism ability is the bane of all things evil. The black gas he was having so much trouble with could very well have been dispelled with a simple cleansing charm from her. Without the protection of the black gas, how can the feeble A.S.S skeleton stand up to a genius girl like herself? The Yokai leader conceivably could have ran away. That would have increased its survival chance because this exorcist Xiaozhou is notorious for her airheadedness. We're talking about someone who could get lost in her own courtyard and appear at Sanzinan Nagi's mansion. Who the H.E.L.L are you? Said the Tsunsun twin-tail Xiaozhou. From the looks of it, it seems she doesn't even mind if he answers or not, contrary to her question. The name's Wu Yan, Hinajiku's butler. Greetings Sanzinan's young miss, and Sajinomi ya's young miss. He resisted starting a squabble with Nagi and just greeted them properly. Butler. Now the Xiaozhou's interested, even the graceful Isumi was surprised at this. You sure you're Hinajiku's butler? Not the other way around. Triggered by Nagi's C.O.C.K sure atti.tude he is. Hey, what did you mean by that, Nagi? Clearly displeased with her statement that implies she's so barbarically strong she didn't need a butler. Greetings Mr. Wu Yan. Isumi did a very polite bow while saying so. Yes. Naturally airheaded Xiaozhous are the cutest. I didn't expect you would come to school. She quipped with good reasons. Let it be known that this young miss here is the super queen of truancy who doesn't come to school more than 10 times in a year. Basically, a home security guard of the highest order. I didn't want to either, it's just that Maria has been nagging me to come. She glanced at Heikuo Academy's gate with a disgusting light in her eyes as if she was molested by a weird uncle here before. TL, slang for pedo. He knows the truth is just that this girl didn't want to go out anywhere. As a glorious otaku young lady, she defends her T.I.Tle with much fervor. None can match her faithfulness to this cause, at least within the girls' crowd. This girl uses all her school time to play games, watch anime, and mangas. She's just 13 and she's already skipped grades to high school, so no one's able to reproach her because she's just too damn smart. Well, that applies to hate as well. Nevertheless, regarding Isumi, he feels like he should get to know her a bit. His mission 3 involves finding the other half of the mysterious crystal, and since this is a part of System's mission and that it's called mysterious crystal, it should have some kind of mysterious power. And to deal with this kind of mysterious object, perhaps the exorcist family of Sajinomi Ya would know something. H.E.L.L, even Nagi could help him since her family possesses an artifact called that can draw out souls. Although it's now lost, but having another alternative is good. Otherwise, where would he even begin searching for a piece of crystal about the size of a thumb in this big wide world? Therefore, he decided on the spot to approach these two great deities. Retrieving the crystal fragment from his S.P.A.Ce ring, he approached Isumi. Miss Sajinomi Ya, may I impose a question on you? A. Floated above her head. She can't imagine what someone she just got to know would ask her. Even Hinajiku and Nagi is looking at him with an odd look coupled with curious gazes. Ignoring the two girls who's out of the know, he just said the crystal to her for examination. Miss Sajinomi ya, would you maybe know what this crystal is? The white crystal broken in half could be seen to shine with great L.U.S.ter under the sunlight's brilliance. It was abnormally beautiful even in the light of day. So pretty. It is pretty normal for girls to be attracted to pretty things, even if it's only a half of its original state. The crystal captured Hinajiku's heart in an instant. It's pretty cute. To a rich lady like her who could build a swimming pool and a Miss.E.M.E.Nt park at her home. This kind of pretty gems are nothing fancy she hasn't seen before. It's not surprising to see her being so indifferent to it. This is. On the other hand, Isumi grew grim and frowned while looking at the crystal in his hand. What's the matter? Do you know the origin of this stone? He was delighted at her reaction, but before he could celebrate further, Isumi raised her head and looked at him with a serious face before shooting him down. No, I don't know. Feeling his legs give up, he was that close to kneeling to this girl. You say you don't know, but what's with the grim expression? Even you don't know. Feeling powerless at her response, he can only ask that. But I can feel a something special from this crystal. It's as though there's some kind of mysterious power within it. Looking at her vexed face, he really didn't know what to do anymore. If the girl says she doesn't know, then what can he do about it? Miss Sanzinen, do you know what this is? Nope. Well done, very blunt. Then have you girls ever seen a similar crystal? He was hopeful for their answer while storing away the crystal. But too bad, the two and Hinajiku shook their heads, making him very disappointed. Mr. Wu Yan, from where did you obtain this crystal? As part of an exorcist family, this kind of artifact with mysterious power ought catch her attention, for if it's something that should it be harmful, it must be managed with due haste. This is what I got after slaying a yokai leader. There was no need to hide anything from her since they're both individuals who walk the same path. It's just that, he's forgetting there's two other people nearby. Yokai leader. The three's shout attract the gaze of many people. Yokai leader, so is it a ghost? With a frightened tone, this Tsundere, a precocious supernatural fearing girl, asked. Slaying? Did you run off the other day to kill this so-called yokai leader? Scared, but she felt furious and unamused about the fact that his affair to attend to turns out to be a poorly disguised attempt to go kill something. Mr. Wu Yan, to be able to slay a yokai leader. Muttering so, she looked into his eyes while starting to become intrigued. Glancing around at the girls, who each gave a different facial reaction as well as the ruckus gathering around them, he bitterly laughed inside. It was my fault for not finding a secret base or something to discuss this matter. Chapter 22. April Fools is the biggest April Fools in history. How's that for April Fools? Mr. Wu Yan, are you also an exorcist? Isumi felt curious about this. Looking at Hinajiku, who's irritated at the side, he can't help but bitterly laugh. No, I'm not an exorcist. It's just that I have a few powers which enabled me to kill supernatural things. Supernatural things, do they really exist? She quickly turned from being angry to a timid attitude. Besides her, Nagi also has the same look, despite trying her best to look tough and failing at it. Not sure how to answer her, he can only look at Isumi for a.s.sist. This in turn put her at a loss of what to do. She kept looking around before deciding to change the topic. Mr. Wu Yan, where did you find this yokai leader? He just pointed at Heikuo Academy. The trio were surprised at this revelation. You're saying that you met a yokai leader inside her Heikuo Academy? Stunned, Isumi lowered her head gloomily. As an exorcist, she didn't even notice the presence of supernatural things despite coming to school every day. How neglectful of her. There's ghost inside Heikuo Academy, surely you jest, Yan. Her smile looked so forced when she said this. Seeing him nod, Nagi was the first to cry out. Like I said, Schools are evil, there's even ghost and the like inside it, it's the most vile of all places, and Maria still forced me to come here. Why I'm never coming here again. He had a headache while stopping Nagi, who's planning to run away with tears inside her eyes, by grabbing the back of her collar. I have already eliminated all the evil spirits within the school, so there won't be any after this. Liar! Do you take me as a fool? Struggling and yelling, he really wanted to tell her that yes, your IQ's high, but that didn't signify you weren't a fool, you are the high IQ type idiot. I'm very grateful to you, Mr. Wu Yan. Isumi gave him a deep bow. If you hadn't eliminated the evil spirits, they would have harmed innocent people when they escaped, the blood would then be on my hand. Truly I'm grateful. He awkwardly smiled while throwing a tsukumai inside. Was not a hero championing the interest of the Ma.S. I'm just went there to do my quest, you didn't need to be so grateful. Mr. Wu Yan, where did you slay the Yakai leader? In her eyes he saw clearly the words to expunge one's humiliation burning within her eyes. It was in the old dormitory. This is just as well, since if she intervened then the root cause would be eliminated. With such a creepy place, he's worried if it would one day be haunted again, but if it's her then there's no better candidate to deal with this. The old dormitory? So the rumor that it's haunted spread by the students were true. Hinagiku interjected. He was rendered speechless at just how dauntless she is. The normal human wouldn't have been able to accept the fact that supernatural things existed within such a short frame of time. Nagi's a special case though, since her house was haunted before and it was none other than Isumi who took care of it. But Hinagiku is a normal human through and through, having never touched this kind of stuff before. Even if she did have some power, being able to accept it or not is another thing altogether. Who would have thought she accepted it so quickly, should we say as expected of Kaiko-sama? I see, so the old dormitory was it? I heard this rumor before but never thought much about it. I was planning to go have a look over there in just a few days. I would have never guessed there would be a Yakai leader there. She can't help but twist her brows into a frown. Looking at her self-blaming self, he can't help but ask for forgiveness. To make a girl who has a naturally terrible sense of direction make an expression other than a blank one, oh what a sinful man I am. Mr. Wu Yan, I will be saying my farewell here. Regarding the old dormitory, just leave it to me for clean-up. Listening to that soothing voice, he can't help but nod, making her give off a silly smile. Oh yeah, the air-headed girl returned to her natural state. Ugh, I don't even know what I'm spouting anymore. Please wait. Before she could turn around and walk into the academy, he hurriedly stopped her. May I ask? She turned her head in response. Please, I insist you take this thing, TL, counter for animals, with you. He said Nagi, who's still flailing around to her. You're the thing, your whole family's a thing. Completely forgetting about the thing with supernatural, she got P.I.S. said at him. Kids will be kids, being afraid or angry is like their natural pace. Dam.net to H.E.L.L whenever one pleases. Isumi had a large sweat drop on her head and dragged the Nagi, who still haven't given up on escaping. She hauled her off without listening to her pleas. Sajinomi Ya's young miss, if there's any news about the crystal please let me know. He shouted at her as she moved away. I understand, Mr. Wu Yan. With Isumi and Nagi's departure, Wu Yan and Hinagiku entered the school compound and the crowd at the school gate began to reduce. En route to the clock tower student council office, the two just walked silently without much conversation. However, he can feel it, he's fallen into a mysterious crisis. With arms akimbo she walked beside him and stared at him with her jewel-like eyes on his face as if she wanted to bore holes in his face. Noticing that Kaiko-sama has returned to her usual state, he didn't feel happy at this. However. Yan, is there something you want tell me? She just gave him a dark smile. He can sense the faint smell of tragedy coming down upon him. If he didn't explain properly, something terrible would befall him. Dryly laughing, his pupil had a flash of light. Why, what do you want me to say? She shocked him with this cold humph, and just as he thought she would bring out the knives, she just went silent with tears at the canthus of her eyes. He instantly panicked. Hinajiku, please don't cry, please don't. Turning her head away, she wiped the tears off the corner of her eyes while muttering, Am I that unworthy of your faith? He was rendered silent by this. Looking at him at a loss of words, she became furious. Lifting her foot, she wanted to run away while sulking, but was stopped by a pull from him. She was stunned and flailed her arms. Let me go. Let go. He adamantly pulled her back. He knows that if he let her go like this, then he absolutely won't be able to forgive himself. Making a woman cry, what a low douchebag. I am. With a jerk, he pulled her within his arms and held her tight. She's stupefied. She was dragged into his arms. Besides her father, she had never touched a boy before, not even hand-holding. Her father didn't even hug her before, so this is a completely foreign situation to her. With this, she completely forgot how to be angry. She anxiously struggled in his arms while not knowing what to make of this. You. What are you doing? Let me go at once. Going, he teased her. H.E.L.L. No, I would let go. If I let you go, what will I do if you run away? With her hands on his chest, she looked away from his face and was being all tensed. Won't run, I won't run, so please let me go. Unexpectedly he tightened the hug even more while being shameless. I don't believe you. Who would if you are lying to me right now? We have a saying in China, women are unreasonable. TL, wow, just wow. You. Even if she became upset, there was no helping it. Strong as she is, stronger than any normal male, she was no match for level 30 Wu Yan. Unable to struggle herself free or convince him, she could only beg him. I really want run, really, so please don't be like this. Other people will see us. Let them see. F.U.C.Km. Like a tyrant, he pressed her head against his chest. Once he hugged her like this, he really didn't want to let go of her, so he can only act all spoiled. Struggling a few more times without any result, she could only yield and closed her eyes. Listening to his heartbeat on his chest, her face was flushed. This really was a first. Smelling the fragrance wafting between her hair, he rubbed her scalp and hesitated before explaining to her. Sorry Hinajiku, but at the moment I can't disclose the situation to you because I still need to complete a very important mission. But, I promise to spill the beans completely after finishing it. Opening her eyes, she lifted her head and looked at his smiling face, muttering with bright eyes. You said it, don't lie to me now. Does this mean, she's forgiven me? Laughing joyfully he nodded and half-jestingly said to her. Although my integrity is as good as gone, but I won't do something so shameless as to lie to a girl while hugging her. Listening to him, she can't help but break a laughter. What do you mean by your integrity is as good as gone? Why do you keep spouting weird things? Tilting his head at her. Is that so? But isn't this fine? At least it can still make you laugh. She lowered her embarrassed said. It's not like I needed you to make me laugh. He drew back the corners of his mouth while grabbing the tender meat on her waist. He tightened his hug and closed his eyes. Hinajiku closed her eyes as well, and the two shared a warm moment in this state. Maybe it's because G.O.D can't look at this cheesy cliché anymore, so he sent an apostle of justice to rescue the damsel in distress. With a mournful shout, a mysterious humanoid shape dropped down from a tree not far from the both of them, giving them a big jump. She quickly pushed him away while blushing red. He just disapprovingly shot a hateful leer at the individual who disrupted his conquest of a xiaozhou. Short blue hair, wearing a Western-styled butler uniform with a pitiful countenance, the guy was rubbing his head while complaining. It looks like he's tightening his hug on something inside his embrace. Hayate Ayasaka, level 16. Well, it's clear now who's the C.O.C.K blocker, it's the MC of the original work. Why did you fall down from the sky? With a look on his face, even Hinagiku's also looking at him curiously. He retorted at him. I didn't fall down from the sky, I just fell from the tree. Slapping his forehead, he powerlessly responded. Fine, so may I ask of the student who fell from a tree, why did you fell from a tree? Rubbing his head with an awkward air. I was just saving a kitty who climbed a tree and can't get down. When I climbed up the tree, the kitty attacked me and so here I fell down. After finishing his explanation, he released his hands, revealing a kitty and proving he was telling the truth. The moment he released his hands, the cat went into frenzy and scratched the S.H.I.T out of his face. Arg. While she's feeling sorry for him, Wu Yan was dancing in joy. This ought to teach you for messing with Moi. Chapter 23. Wu Yan is very p.I.s. set off about getting interrupted when he is conquering a xiaozhou. But what can he do? Hit the M.O.F.O? He would, but this poor F.U.C.K has fate S.C.R.E.W.I.N.G with him since his birth already, and he's technically a good guy, so even if he has the reason to beat him up, it wouldn't be cool to beat him up. But he doesn't feel right if he didn't beat him up either. Finally, he decided to greet him first and delay the decision until further notice. He is still the main character of the original work. Looking at Hate, who's still feeling the fast and furious scratch of Kitty, and Hinagiku, who felt sorry for him, he put on a smile before greeting him. H.E.L.Lo, my name's Wu Yan, Chinese. Although I'm a student of Heikuo Academy, I am currently a butler, please teach me well. Only after he heard Wu Yan did he responded back. Nice to meet you, I am Ayasaki Hate. Calming down the rioting kitty inside his arms, he forced a smile with that face full of scratches. Ayasaki Hate, butler of Sanzinan family, greetings, so you're a butler as well, huh? The latter part was referring to Wu Yan because this might very well be the first time he saw another butler of the same age range as him, so he's surprised and curious at the same time. That's right, I'm currently the butler of Milady Hinagiku. He snickered and glanced at Hinagiku when he said so. Hate is even more astonished now, he's the butler of that beautiful girl. Who would blame him for being astonished? Just a while ago he saw quite clearly from the tree that these two were hugging each other. He thought for sure they were a couple. Unhappy, she glared at him with a blushing face after grasping the vague idea from Hate's eyes. Perhaps it's because she's unhappy about being forcibly hugged, or perhaps she's unhappy about her introduction by Wu Yan. Well then, Ayasaka-kun, what are you doing here? From the looks of it, you don't look like a student of this school. After slightly calming down from being fluid U.S.Teared, she began to have the curiosity as expected of girls towards this Hate who had a flashy entrance. Alarmed, he quickly let go the cat in his hands before apologetically facing the both of them. Actually, the reason I'm here is because Milady forgot her lunchbox, so I decided to bring it for her. Listening to him, he remembered that there's such a scenario inside the original work. In it, because Nagi forgot her bento, he came to Heikuo Academy to give it to her. But due to various rather complicated happenings, like Wu Yan, when he first came to Heikuo Academy he was met with the bad S.H.I.T crazy sisters uninvented A.S. Salt. Too bad, however, he didn't have such a high competence as him, his level and Yokaiji's is just one level. Hence, he didn't got into school that easily. In the end, under the A.S. assistance of the three Amiga, he managed to sneak into the school. Also, the cat he just saved was originally supposed to be saved by Hinagiku, but because she's afraid of height and couldn't come down, she was A.S. Assisted by him, TL, human meat cushion approach if I recall correctly. Then, he was dragged into the student council as a series of odd events happened around him. And now, due to Wu Yan's influence, the original event that would have built a good start to their relationship was gone. He was feeling quite lucky and his gaze lightened a lot regarding Hayate. Even if he has the peach blossom flower luck, TL luck with the ladies, he refused to believe that under the condition of standing on a pavilion close to water, TL, advantage from proximity to target, and striking first he would lose to this unlucky fellow. What's more, the moment he had with Hinagiko just now was enough to further their relationship beyond a fundamental stage. That and their foundation forged through being together all the time, does that mean conquest is still far away? Therefore, Hayate, you open your crystal palace, I will open mine as well. Our well water shouldn't touch river water, TL, mind each other's business. You have a big A.S.S crystal palace, I don't even have one in it, the one I am conquering is off limits, so you should go away while feeling relieved. That's enough about his internal monologue. Hinagiko on the other hand is getting darker and darker listening to Hayate's unfortunate academy adventure. Ayasaka-kun, the guard at the gate who wouldn't let you in and attacked you without rhyme or reason, could she perhaps have been a girl with short green shoulder-length hair? He can see very clearly she's holding in the anger, he can only sigh inwardly, with such a psychotic sister, one would age very fast. Once he nodded, she was instantly enveloped in a dark air making Wu Yan's heart jump. Holy S.H.I.T. Kaiko-sama also know the altar technique. TL, probably a reference to saber altar, not sure about this, blackenization technique. Dumbstruck and seeing her on the verge of exploding, he quickly pulled her hands. Hinagiko, that's enough, now that Hayate is already inside, let's put down the aforementioned matter first and help him locate Miss Sanzinen. The dark air behind her disappeared, this is due to her blushing at the sight of him pulling her hands. She turned her head to the side unnaturally. Yo, you've got a point, well let's go then, to the student council and then giving Nagi a notification. She took off after finishing her sentence without hesitation. Looking at her run, he was at a loss of words while Hayate is still confused about the whole situation. That was really stupid, little Hayate, saving a cat and getting caught, seriously. In the student council room, which unlike normal, is completely filled with people at the moment. Nagi is currently pointing her fingers at the hard-pressed Hayate, chanting the words she said just now more than 10 times already. Standing beside her is Isumi, who seems like she wants to say something to Nagi but can't find the chance to interject. Standing there she kept repeating that, TL, which means something like Sigawa Izumi, Hanabishi Miki, Asake's Risa. The Three Stooges are also here watching Nagi scolding Hayate with very interested faces. The peanut gallery kept egging Nagi on and looked like they wanted to play as well, but they held in their hands a paper plate. Sitting in the corner is Yukaiji, who's tied like a zongza with swirling eyes, while Hinagiko snapping at her and spraying saliva at the same time. Wu Yan just sat at the only desk in the student council office, Hinagiko's seat, while looking over the ruckus. He can't help but yawn at this. After Hayate was brought here, Bats.H.I.T. crazy sister came running and laughed manically before grabbing an arming sword used as a decoration to execute Hayate on the spot. Seeing Yukaiji going insane again, Hinagiko's pent-up anger finally exploded. She grabbed an arming sword as well. H.E.L.L. bent on close kindred slaughter, TL, read discipline. In a battle where one side is raging and another side is acting all crazy, Yukaiji was getting very into character and fought harder and harder as if the opponent is not her sister. Although Hinagiko was raging, she was kind. How can she really fight against her sister with all her heart? In an unfair battle, Hinagiko was almost done in by Yukaiji. Wu Yan, who decided to sit that one out, was infuriated by her. You litho, weren't you thinking about your brother-in-law when you decided to commit internecine strife? 'Twas a very fierce, soul-rending, thrilling, and PG-rated discipline before Yukaiji was turned into a zongzi and tossed to the corner of the room. After he finished wrecking the crazy sister, Nagi and Isumi arrived along with the Three Stooges. After an intense Q&A, the scene became the ruckus before him. He was enamored with this crowd before him, before this when he watched Hayate the combat butler, he admired their interactions even though they look like they're living very tiring days. Without a doubt, they are very happy. It's not just the joyous stuff, there's the sad stuff, the frustrating stuff, and after trials and tribulations it would all end in happiness. He dreamt of this. As an otaku, this was something he never experienced before. But now, well, since there's this kind of opportunity, let's properly enjoy ourselves. He chuckled before looking at Izumi, who's still at a loss of what to do. Miss Sajinomiya, how did the thing with the old dormitory went? Overhearing him, everyone calmed down. He felt odd at why they suddenly calmed down, but the sparkly eyes and their expression told him all he needed to know. By old dormitory you mean the one, Nagi-chan said, the one with the monster. Going into business, Izumi turned serious. In his eyes, of course, she's still pretty damn cute, that's for sure. Yep, the miasma there is quite bad. If not properly managed, it might attract more yokais. I have already sealed the cave with charms. Regarding the cleanup, someone from the family will come and start a ritual. Only then could the place be cleansed. But what? From the miasma, it seems like they should have been a lot of malevolent spirits there. Izumi turned her eyes towards Wu Yan. Along with her gaze, the others looked at him as well. Everyone's eye is on him. He simply nodded in agreement. Indeed, before the yokai leader made an appearance, they were a ton of skeletons and onryos, probably numbering in the hundreds if not thousands. Everyone was awestruck. Izumi's mouth in particularly was wide agape in shock, looking at him like he's a giant wearing his underwear inside out. He can only bitterly laugh after noticing this. Don't look at me like that. I believe if you had thought up of a countermeasure you would have done it in an easier fashion than me. Undeniably, her family is a big family of witches who deals with exorcism. Every power in their body is the bane of all supernatural beings. Even if Izumi and Wu Yan's level are the same, but because of affinity, compared to him who can only cut them down using sword, she would have had an easier time dealing with those monsters. An A.N.A.Logi would be when using the same Ma.S.S of water and the same Ma.S.S of cloths against a fire. One could use the cloth to cover the fire and then step on it to put it out, but using water would have put out the fire in less time than the cloth, more efficiently and without leaving an amber behind. Everyone's gaze turned to Izumi. She glanced left and then glanced right before raising her sleeves to cover her face. Yes. So many yes. Little las.s be shy. But, a shy Izumi is really very cute. No. Well, judging by how Hayate is looking at N.O. body butter and that he's flushed with his ruffled appearance, one could tell just how cute Izumi is. Nagi, who saw this, got mad and swiftly delivered a punch at Hayate. Hayate, you little jerk. The punch hit squarely on the side of his face, making him cry out in a loud voice while flying backwards with blood coming out of his nose. And then, he slammed against Izumi, who's enjoying the movie. The two tumbled on the ground. Guy on top, girl in the bottom, like a cyanide man jumping on a timid girl, like a wolf pushing down a girl. They both looked at each other with deep zion. Nagi was so mad her face turned a copper green and then rapidly turned dark. You big idiot. Looking at the scene where N.O. body but them knows Hayate is being tortured, he's secretly happy. Only when the original main character is unlucky do we have something worth looking at. Chapter 24. A bit after the shenanigans, Izumi suddenly broke the pace. Mr. Wu Yan, I was wondering if I can invite you to come to my house. Would you happen to have an opening in your schedule? Along with her voice the room went into a strange lull. Those who were bickering stopped bickering, those who were fighting stopped fighting, a certain someone who was getting the centipede in ears stopped screaming. They were looking at Izumi and Wu Yan with gentle eyes. Of course, except for a certain someone. Feeling a chill go down his spine, he rigidly turned his face around only to see Akiko-sama, who's donning an amiable smile. Fuck me. My favorability went down to 0. As expected, only when the MC is cursed with bad luck is there something to see, huh? TL, karma b.I.A.T.C.H. His tears flowed down his face. Only when she saw the mellow gazes of everyone did she try to panically explain herself. No, it's not like that everyone, I'm just inviting Mr. Wu Yan to my home because mother and grandmother are curious about him getting rid of spirits, so. Hearing her explanation, everyone nodded understandingly. Feeling the cold air going away, he heaved a sigh of relief, glad he dodged a nice boat. TL, nice boat, referring to the thing with school days' last episode 12 being replaced with a nice boat drifting down a river for some reason. In this case, wrecked so hard it's not to appear on screen. Perhaps someone with better knowledge of the show could explain. I have not watched the anime so I wouldn't able to explain properly. He started to think about the invitation. He's quite interested in it not only because he gets to see the height of abilities inside this world but also because of his own mission. In this world, Sajinomiya family is a well-known family. Add that to the fact that they're an exorcist family, then surely the power and influence they wield is greater than him. Left to his own device to search or to get the help of a big family, it would be more expedient to go with the latter. Besides, it entails searching for just a piece of crystal. Surely he wouldn't get rejected. Thinking like that, he nodded to her invitation. I understand, Miss Sajinomiya, I will be visiting the Sajinomiya family tonight. She beamed at his response. Then I will patiently wait for your grand arrival. After school, walking on the street back home is a situation that differs from normal. He's walking behind Hinajiku and she's in front of him. Every time he made haste to catch up with her, she would increase the speed of her steps so as to not stand together with him. This is baffling him to no ends. Did I do something wrong? TL, facepalm. She's feeling very complicated as she kept on walking in front of him, unsure of how to deal with the feelings. Before Wu Yan, there was no male whom she had such a close relationship with before. At the start, because he spouted something so ridiculous as to PAS.S entrance exam in 1 hour, she held hostility against him. As the student council president of Heikuo Academy, this is clearly a challenge and contempt towards Heikuo Academy from her perspective. So, she went along with the bet in the heat of the moment. After that, in the span of 1 hour and the interactions they had, she found out that he's not the C.O.C.K.Y.P.R.I.C.K she thought he was. On the contrary, he's quite an affable fellow. This changed her opinion of him and removed the animosity she had for him. Under the influence of this change of opinion and his shocking memory, she can't help but feel a sense of intrigue from the guy. After that, the development surrounding his current position as butler, she was merely reaching out for the sake of reaching out, to give him who came from a foreign place a place to stay, that's all. Gradually, spending more and more time with him, she began to have a deeper understanding of Wu Yan. He would try to make her laugh every day and his cooking basically conditioned her into relying on him. This slowly made her think of him as her closest buddy. Then that night happened. He barged into her room and saw her naked body, which deeply infuriated her. She's actually quite self-conscious of her body, not anything in particular but her chest. She's already almost 16 and yet her chest is still no more bigger than when she has just entered middle school. This fact made her very anxious and self-abased. And so that night when he saw her, she thought for sure he would sneer at her. Getting mocked by one's own best pal, looking at his regretful expression, she felt even more inferior. Letting herself go, she didn't care about being naked anymore. She just wanted to teach him a lesson, but he didn't laugh at herself. Who would have thought that not only did he not ridicule her, he even said something like it very much. Her heart was thrown into disarray. Yes, she's pretty popular in Heikuo Academy, but she hadn't really spent any time with any boys, so when has she even been confronted with something like this? Plus, he said like and whatnot. From that night on, she changed her feelings towards him ever so slightly. Not long after that she felt a strong sense of rejecting her own feelings, her feelings for him. Being the first time she actually felt something like this towards a boy, she didn't know how to deal with this. So she chose to deal with it like how she treated him these past few days, very odd and weird. The relationship turned from being able to tease each other into her not being able to feel at peace with herself anymore. This pas of attitude of interaction was her way of dealing with the mess. She's actually getting a bit worried, with the way she's acting being all distant and pas of, he would certainly hate her, right? But Wu Yan acted like nothing had happened. He kept making the meals, telling the same stupid jokes. This made the weird sensation turn contract, condensing into something much bigger. And today, she's thrown into chaos. What with him hiding stuff from her, why would she feel sad? Being hugged by him, shouldn't she struggle free? Why did she fail to resist falling into the warm embrace offered by him? What's more, when Isumi invited him to her home, why did she feel uncomfortable at it? She had lived her life every day in a simple way, her heart did not have much ripples. But in her endless thoughts, ripples formed in waves all over her heart. I say, milady Hinajuku, if I did something wrong, just give it to me straight so I may die with no grievances. Looking at Hinajuku, who's so absorbed in her thoughts she went into a wrong route, he was truly speechless. They had already arrived at a small forest, so he just rushed to her front and blocking her off, looking like a selfless martyr rushing to his death. His action shocked her into backpedaling a few steps. But looking at his silly look, she can't help but laugh. He also beamed at her reaction. Oh, we're laughing now? I take it that means you're all right already? Stunned by him, she forced a grin. I'm fine, why would I not be? Really now? Giving her a skeptical look, he approached her slowly and stuck his face close to hers before smirking at her. Look at my face and let's see you say you're fine one more time. Heart beating faster, face slowly turning red, she's looking at his face just a few inches away. She can't help but back away. For what reason would he let her go? Seeing her back away, he moved forward. When she finally backed into a trunk, he came right up to her, making her heart jump. She turned her head to the side while shouting, I'm fine. I'm completely fine. Rolling his eyes at her blatant lie. You dare not look at my face and you say you're okay? Really, if you have something you want to say then just say it. Otherwise, you aren't keeping your promise from before. Promise? She felt confused at his statement. He fell down feeling a little hurt. It looks like you've forgotten about it. She scratched the side of her face while looking apologetic. What promise was it again? Since you've forgotten about it, then forget about it? What, since you brought it up you might as well say it. Could it be the one favor from the bet before? She kept shaking her head trying to recall, but failing she growled at him. Looking satisfied with her reaction, he shook her hands. Okay, didn't I say I would tell you the circustances surrounding me as part of the promise? It just happened today, and you call yourself an outstanding top student. Oh, so it was that. Realizing something very important, she shouted out loud. Wait, no, that promise can't be invalid. Didn't you say you won't lie to a girl while hugging her? You must keep your end of the promise. Looking at her being all mad and furious, he's speechless. The one who forgot about the promise is you, wasn't it? Kaiko-sama. You forgot it yourself, it's not me who's not keeping his end of the deal. No means no. Having a bright idea, he rubbed his chin before smirking. That is to say, the promise must be abided by, that correct? But of course. Unhesitatingly she served. Sneering at her, he continued, much her uneasy feeling. Well then, milady Hinajuku, the thing you brought up about the favor, isn't it about time you fulfilled your promise? Laughing like a villain, she realized she got caught and resolutely defended herself. Very well. Say it, what's your favor? I will absolutely fulfill it. Going at her statement, the grin on his face widened even further. Slowly he began to approach her face. When she understood in her stupor what he s trying to do with a poof, her face began to steam up. At a loss of what to do with the approaching face, she was alarmed. What are you trying to do? Chuckling, he implied his intentions insidiously. You tell me, what am I going to do? She wants to retreat further away, but the trunk is right behind her, and his body is already right up against her. Looking at the approaching face, she used her hands to resist his chest, and she protested with a blushing face. Don't, please don't do this. Ignoring her, he was celebrating inside. This kind of opportunity and mood, those who don't further their conquest really should go hang themselves. Cupping her waist with his hands, he dragged her into his embrace and slowly made his way towards her lips. She twisted her body out of anxiety and started trembling. After she entered his grasp and felt the distance between them shrunk to zero, she began to puff before finally yielding herself over. And right before he's about to conquer the dreamed about land, a loud bang surprised Hinagiku, and she opened her eyes to see what happened. Looking at the thing before her, she was filled with terror. Bigger than a man by about 50%, the thing was wearing an armor and equipped with 2 giant axes. From the looks of it, it looked like a fat armored dude about to begin assault. It looked just like a human, except clearly it isn't, for it lacked a head. Still hugging her, he looked at the life form before him. His face is expressionless, but in his eyes and heart a raging fire is about to take hold of him. The original main character disrupting my conquest can be ignored, but even a headless piece of trash like you is going to f.u.c.k with me. Chapter 25. Headless Giant, Level 20. Failing to land a strike, the giant retrieved its axe. Brandishing its axe and then leaning forward with its arms wide and flailing, it looks like it's trying to roar. Yan. Wadash. What is that? Looking at the headless giant with pale face, Hinagiku hugged Wu Yan's arm while trembling. He almost forgot the fact that Kaiko-sama is very afraid of supernatural stuff. Bitterly laughing and hugging the trembling body, he tightened his hold on her waist and tried comforting her. It's nothing, just a mere bug, there's nothing to be afraid of. Raising her head to look at him, her trembling body managed to calm down. Although she is still pale, the terror she felt has reduced a lot. Her hands were holding onto him tighter than ever lest he lets go of herself. Seeing that she's much better, he smiled at her. You wait here, I am going to go settle this b.i.t.c.h first, then we're going home. TL, author used she instead of it, so I took some liberty. She was worried for his safety when she understood what he's going to do. Is it alright? Why don't we just run? No problem, have faith in me. Kissing her forehead, he assured her once more. His action tinged her cheeks in a bit of red before he resolutely let her go, not before she muttered worryingly. Then be careful now. Nodding, he enoed his contact with her waist before letting go and turning towards the headless giant. His smile turned into a cold look, and this failed to mask the flames in his eyes, which rekindled. He began his stride of tranquil fury towards the headless giant. Reaching his arm out, Kusanagi's sword appeared in his hand. Grabbing the sheath of the sword, his smile turned into a cruel arc. I am going to teach you just how bad a consequence is when you meddle with someone else's shoujo pick-up moment. Unsheathing Kusanagi's sword by his waist, he grabbed the sheath with one hand and the hilt with another before letting out a malevolent grin. Dashing forward, he disappeared and reappeared within a blink of an eye in front of the headless giant. A cold light flashed and the arm that held onto the axe flew to the sky, landing on a nearby surface. The headless giant silently roared, but instead of sound the surrounding air had ripples in them, informing that the strike has landed effectively. The headless giant shook its body and swung its axe viciously at him. Watch out! Watching as the axe approached him, she can't help but cry out of concern. Completely on different tier to him, she can still see the movements of a level 20 tier 3 headless giant, since it's not that wide a gap yet. TL, the tier gap gets wider on higher tiers, but they're still basically beginners at this stage. If not for her apprehension of enemies the likes of the giant, this compet.I.tiv girl wouldn't have sat there and watched as Wu Yan fought on the front lines. Certainly this is under the pretext where Hinagiku does not have the system identification and probing and she can't detect presences. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be worried since the two parties are completely different in terms of quality of fighting power, completely different in terms of tier. He calmly looked at the approaching axe. Without even moving his sword-wielding right hand, his left was raised to intercept the trajectory of said axe, and with a chang it blocked the giant axe. Giving it an indifferent gaze, his right hand moved and it drew a line the air before the giant released another howl, "Rest in peace, other arm." Spinning his body around, he gave the disarmed, headless giant a roundhouse kick, sending it flying into a few trees before it slammed onto the ground completely immobile. Stunned, she recovered and ran to his side. "You all right? Do I look like I'm hurt?" He can't help but chuckle at her. Looking at her face and then her lips, he silently wept. "Do you think I have it easy on my route to conquering Xiaozhous? Isn't it unbearable if this trend continues? 2 times I have tried to proceed to next base, but each and every time I got denied. Isn't it reminiscent of the unlucky someone? Dam.nug.o.d, I hate you." Noticing his eyes, she quickly figured out what was going through that mind of him and she blushed while leering at him unamusedly. "It has already been so long and you're still thinking stuff like this. AI." Sighing dejectedly, he decided to put it behind him with an unsatisfied face. "I guess we have to wait until next time. Who would do that with you again next time? You said it before, promises have to be kept." Reminding her gently so, he won't drop a tear until he sees the coffin, refusing to give up until the very end. Clenching her teeth, she glared at him before shouting at them. "The sky is getting dark, why don't you quickly finish off the monster so we can go home? I'm hungry." He went hee when he saw her changing the subject. He then nodded before making his way toward the armless giant. Since there's a first time, there's gonna be a next time as well. The first time he's a stranger, the second time he would be familiar. He believed in this principle firmly, referring to the chance to move on to next base, that there would be a second chance and he would definitely nail it. In this case there's no first time to speak of, but at least there's a zing. The gal clearly didn't reject him, so that means she likes him. Thus, he only need to take it slow from now on. He knows this is so and he's quite pleased at it. Finally Kaiko-sama has been half conquered. Even this sappy excuse of an otaku understands this. How could Kaiko-sama not catch on? So, I like Wu Yan. Holding both her hands in front of her chest, her eyes when looking at his back became a bit out of focus. Ra says so, just read as enamored. Thinking about the animosity when they first met, thinking about the joyous days they spent being with each other, thinking about the birthday suit event, thinking about the warmth she received from him, and thinking about the kiss that almost happened. She smiled. She's intoxicated. Looking at the suit of armor that's struggling on the ground like a tortoise but can't get up no matter how it twisted its body, he just cut it in half with a slice of Kusanagi sword. It was quite fortuitous that this thing didn't have any blood, otherwise he would have to find another way to execute it since gore is out of the question. This is in consideration of Hinagiku, who's born normal in this world and can't take B.L.O.O.D.Y stuff. After it died it began to turn into ashes. This lightened his burden a lot actually, because even though this place is the woods, it is still not far from the city. Given the fact that Hinagiku walked here unknowingly, other people could presumably walk PAS.S here and see this strange F.U.C.Cur, and it would be all over the news the next morning. Wouldn't it be just a weird suit of armor in the forest? Not headline material though. He thought for sure he would have to liquefy it or something. After the headless giant disappeared completely he sighed in wonder. Just when had he had such an easy battle since transport 3 months ago, his past opponents were all either same or higher in terms of level, every time he fought like crazy and had to put effort into thinking how to deal with the threat. Despite fighting the horde of level 10 mobs in the underground hall before, facing that army, how can he let his guard down against such a number? He felt like he has somehow grown stronger. He is certainly also cognizant that strong as he is, he's still far from being a super. What's wrong? The sweet voice summoned him from his thoughts. Quickly he stowed away his feelings before smiling at Hinajiku, who was walking by his side from G.O.D knows when. Nothing much, aren't you hungry? Let's go, back to home, I will be cooking up a storm. Hinajiku revealed a stunning smile and it took him by surprise. Let's head back. Nodding, he scratched his head before bringing her out of the forest. Inside his heart, however, he's still feeling weird. It feels like she has something for him now, no matter how one observes it, from her tone, her gaze, and her gem-like eyes. Ma, never mind, as long as she's happy. How will we deal with the promise? Storing his Kusanagi sword away under the curious eyes of Hinajiku, he jested. It's not yet time for the reveal yet, but even if he didn't want to, he wouldn't be able to sweep this under the mat for a lifetime. Hence, some minor things can be done in front of her without hiding it, he will just have to explain it properly the next time. When she heard him, she was going to ask him where did the sword disappear to, but she blushed instead. With a humph she turned her head away while grumbling. The promise, is it? Didn't you say it before that you would tell me all about it when the time is right? He felt astonished at her, this las.sie, she still can act dumb. You know I'm not referring to this one. How am I not referring to this one? You pretending it never happened. Who, says who, and you, when will you fulfill your promise? Didn't I say it before? When the time is right, I will keep the promise. Well, then I guess I would keep mine as well, when the time is right. Hinajiku, you have turned into a bad apple. Come night time, because of the growth of his relationship with Kaiko-sama, he didn't pull punches and made a full course of dishes, much to the protest by Hinajiku and her mom's bulging stomach. Even the dad, who rarely came home and just got back, couldn't help but devouring the leftovers. Milady, you should go take a bath. Picking up the plates, he advised her, who's still sitting at the dining table. Understood. She nodded and then looked at him with a never-before-seen strictness. Yan, never call me milady or young miss from now on, you understand me? The lines were the same as the last 100 of times, but he has never seen her so serious before when saying this to him. Quite frankly, he's feeling very surprised. What happened? Ugh, that's why Wu Yan, you are still wet behind the ears. To become a king of conquest you still need to work harder. He dismissed his trolling urge and just smiled at her. All right, hurry up and go shower. Pleased with his reply, she got up from the chair and bounced her way to the bathroom like a little kid. He shook his head in a mis.e.m.e.nt before putting down the dishes in his hand and jumped out the window to the outside. Landing on the ground, he immediately took out Kusanagi's sword. The moment it materialized, he reversed his grip on it and brought it down in a straight stab at the ground. Yeah. TL, yeah, as in the yeah of Yaya from Unbreakable Machine Doll. A baby-like cry resounded, and on the patch of ground where Kusanagi's sword pierced, bloodstain began to spread out. Sheathing the sword, his brows furrowed. This, from the time he dealt with that headless giant, has been the fourth wave of attacker. What's going on? Why are monsters popping up all over to converge here? This clearly hasn't happened before. Thinking something's amiss, he begun to puzzle over this riddle. What could be going on? This situation only started to happen from today. Maybe I did something today that attracted the monsters. Or perhaps Hinajiku's family did something. Shaking his head to dismiss his thoughts, he stored away Kusanagi's sword and walked back inside his house. Screw it, he will just wait until his visit to Sajinomiya family tomorrow to pose this question. Chapter 26. The second day, he finished preparing the breakfast like usual and called out to Hinajiku's family. Her parents and her began to enjoy the bountiful breakfast. Yukaiji's a teacher at Heikuo Academy, so she's normally not at home but at school, hence normally she shouldn't be seen here. Of course it's lucky that she's not, even if she's Kaiko-sama's family member, he would need to think carefully before deciding whether or not to come live here. The four leisurely ate their breakfast before her father said his farewell and went to work. While Hinajiku's mom watched the news, she sat on the dining table reading with much seriousness the daily newspaper. Her eyes would wander occasionally over to Wu Yan. Today's a weekend, so there's no CLA.S.S, that's why the two was able to PAS.S time in such a relaxed manner. Given, for a while that is. Oh yes, I am gonna go out in a bit, I would probably be back by noon. He notified her after he finished doing the dishes. She can't help but question him. Where are you going? Cleaning his hands with a handkerchief, he looked at her with much amiss.e.m.e.nt. Could it be you've forgotten? I have an appointment with Miss Sajinomiya, a visit to her home. Isumi, is it? She was stunned and began to ponder about something. Soon, she stood up and made her intentions clear. I'm going with you. He felt something strange as he watched her before a smug smirk slowly floated up his face. She glowed red at his smirk before vexatiously shouting at him. Don't misunderstand me, it's Jaset, just because staying at home would be boring, so I wanted to go check out Isumi's house. So she says, but the tinge of redness on her face is very suspicious, flailing her arms like that. He just sighed at her before saying with a spirit of chopping nails and slicing iron, TL, resolute/unhesitating source. If you're worried about me picking up some flowers or trampling some GRA.S.S, then just say so, I won't laugh at you for it. To pick flowers and mock GRA.S.S, pick up chicks, go to brothels, philandering source. Her body stiffened up and unreasonably spouted. Who's worried about you picking up chicks? You're not mising or anything, I'm just worried about you laying your hands on Isumi. Yes, that's right, it's like this. This is tsundere, isn't it? Definitely so, isn't it? TL, really? Okay, so it's like, is it? Well, I won't be going to Isumi's house after all, I'm going to pick up some chicks. Before he could finish, she pinched the soft meat between his waist, making him howl out of pain. Furiously leering at him, she just gave him a humph. Mina, a jerk who only bullies other people. Turning her head, she walked towards the door. Let's get a move on. Feeling the muscle around his waist, he helplessly shook his head. He didn't believe that this was the sure kill technique of females before, but he's a believer now. This is Isumi's house? It's huge. They are standing at the Sajinomiya family's entrance, looking at the huge A.S.S door. She can't help but exclaim at the structure. She's seen bigger doors before, like Heikuo Academy's door for example being bigger than this, but that's a freaking school and this is someone's home. Is the two even supposed to be comparable in the first place? As expected from someone loaded. He nodded in agreement before proceeding to ringing the intercom on the side of the door. Yes, this is the Sajinomiya's. Promptly, a voice came from it. He doesn't who this is, but he responded anyway. H.E.L.Lo, I'm Wu Yan and I've been invited by Miss Sajinomiya Isumi, I'm here for a visit. Very well, please hold on. Seeing that the conversation has finished, Hinajiku walked over. Isn't that Isumi's voice just now? No way. Rubbing his cheeks, he guessed. Maybe it's the receptionist of Sajinoya or something, since we're talking about a big family here. She agreed with while nodding. And during their conversations, the door slowly opened and Isumi walked out from within. Mr. Wu Yan, Miss Hinajiku, good morning. Like before, she used the long sleeves of her waf.u.ku to cover her mouth while talking and giving them a bow. Good morning. Miss Sajinomi ya. He doesn't particularly take note of mannerisms and just casually waved his hands. Morning, Isumi. Although she isn't that familiar with her, her mannerisms are better than Wu Yan, that's for sure. Would the both please follow me inside, esteemed mother awaits you guys in the guest hall. She was saying it just fine until she reached the esteemed mother part and her smile began to look a bit forced. He felt humored inside because he knows that her has serious tuning issues. He's not feeling strange at her reaction. To be able to give birth to a daughter who can get lost all the way to Kyoto and has ridiculous level of natural airheadedness, her mother's personality should still be the same as the one in his imaginations. Isumi brought them to a guest hall just a bit smaller than a plaza. There, a girl who looked much more mature than Isumi and looks very alike to her albeit with short hair is currently staring at the both of them without blinking. The two is awkward at being stared so much while Isumi's covering her slightly blushing face with her long sleeves. She ran over in small steps toward her mother in that fashion and mewled at her. Mother. Her mother turned over and tilted her head as she observed Isumi. As if she realized something she beamed. Isn't this Isumi? When were you here? I was here from the start, mother. Glancing over at Wu Yan and Hinajiku, she got a little bit upset at her. Is that so? She slightly shook her head before raising her head and patting her. Is that true? Don't lie, okay? A lying girl is a bad girl. Mother. Wu Yan and Hinajiku looked at each other in dismay, rendered speechless they gave her a sympathetic look. It really has been tough on you, hasn't it? Hinajiku in particular felt more empathy towards her, what with her having the honor of looking after a certain problematic sister. Madam Sajinomi ya, greetings, I'm Wu Yan and I've come to you this time to consult with you about something. She blankly looked at him before responding to him. Consultation? On how to maintain one's body. Actually, I want to ask madam whether or not you recognize this crystal. Ignoring the details because that's for, he overlooked her comments and just took out the crystal and showed it to her. He doesn't have a high hope for this out-of-frequency Hatsuho, but at least I know it. Nodding understandingly, he subconsciously blurted out. Oh, is that so, so you don't know as well, huh? Then I have a favor to ask of. Freezing his smile like he's cursed by a body stop pong spell, it took a while before he recovered. Still donning a bright smile, he asked of her. Could you please repeat what you said just now one more time? I implore you. Continuing to pat Isumi's head, she looked at him before slowly nodding. The way to maintain one's health. Face-palming herself, even if she didn't take part in this conversation, she can feel the same sense of futility at talking with this woman. Oh, how she wished she to bury her face into the ground. She can only think about one thought, embarrassment. TL can also be translated as, she wants to throw somebody if is taken literally. Hang in there, Isumi. But much to her ignorance, he didn't mind it, not even if Kaiko-sama started giving benefits out again would he mind it, much less this kinda of thing. He's completely absorbed in celebrating inside his mind. There's a clue to the final mission at last. How can this not send him to Cloud 9? Thus he quickly followed up. Madam Sajinomi ya, is what you said true? This crystal? Shoving the crystal to within a centimeter of her face, he can't hold his excitement in any longer. Do you really recognize this? Yan. Hinajiku tugged at his shirt because she felt like he was being a bit rude. She gave an apoplectic smile at Isumi's mom while doing so. She didn't resent this. She's out of tune herself. Even if he were to dance around naked in front of her, she would most likely just smile while happily brewing tea and then sit back and enjoy the performance. TL, what is this? I don't even. I remember this piece of crystal. Poking the crystal with the tip of her finger, she responded to him in a laid-back manner. Tugged once more by Hinajiku, did he realize he's being intrusive? Giving her a bright smile, he turned serious again. If you know the background of this crystal, then please by all means tell me, this crystal means a lot to me so. Mother, please help Mr. Wu Yan, he assist me before with that, exorcism. With a voice so meek anyone there barely can hear her she pleaded. Looking at her flushed face, he's very moved, her mom just nodded, while Hinajika feeling very jelly. Sure. Grabbing the tea on the table, she sipped in a way that looks like she's organizing her thoughts into coherent speech before speaking. The name of this crystal is Mysterious Crystal, but I like the term Sealing Crystal better. Sealing Crystal. NN, because inside this crystal, there's a monster sealed inside. Sealed monster. He can't but frown as he pick up the crystal to observe it. A crystal used to seal monster? System, why would you give out this kind of mission, why crystals with sealed monster inside them? Why would there a monster sealed inside this crystal? He turned his head over to the direction of Hatsuho. She retrieved the crystal from his hand and tilted her head while looking at it. A long time ago. No Tsukumis. Must not throw Tsukumis. Holding himself back by pinching his thighs he gave Hinajiku a few dry laughs before sitting upright and still. Sometime during ancient periods, there was a time when yokai roamed the lands. During that period, human civilization was still developing and under the threat of monsters they could only live trembling in fear. However, one day a powerful yokai was born. This yokai had tremendous strength. The yokai lord at the time L.U.S.Ted after its power and wanted to devour it to enhance himself. To obtain this yokai's blood and flesh it decided to send his yokai minions in droves, not because it wanted to capture the yokai alive but because it wanted to debilitate it and drain its strength. The yokai lord erred however, due to underestimating this yokai, his minions were all annihilated at only a part of the yokai's strength. Even then the yokai lord still could not best the opponent and finally he ironically was devoured by this yokai. At the time, there's a clan of exorcists who chanced upon this battle. To avoid the yokai from creating further harm amongst humankind the clan's head decided to lead his clan into a battle to seal the yokai away while it's still weak. And the artifact that sealed this monster away was this mysterious crystal. Chapter 27. Something like no moral integrity, don't talk to elders with respect, don't watch what they say do or act can also be used to hint that other party is being rude to you / cross the line a bit. A close English meaning for the above t.I.tle would be the spontaneous exorcist ancestor. So you're saying that inside this pretty crystal there's a yokai, that right? Hinajiku took another glimpse at the crystal in Wu Yan's hand. Seeing Isumi's mom nodding, she quickly shifted to the side a bit. Looking at her reaction he can't help but roll his eyes at her, all he got was a leer from her. Squeezing the mysterious crystal fragment in his palm he still doesn't quite understand why the system would issue a search and retrieve mission like this. He decided that since there's a chance anyone is out to get him but absolutely not the system, the thought that this system is controlled by someone else behind the scene also crossed his mind but he decided to let it go after musing for a while. If system wanted to burn him, it would have happened back when he first transported, why wait until now? For better or worse this mission has been given out by system, so it won't pose any danger to him, otherwise the system wouldn't issue this kind of mission. It has already issued various mission that placed him in danger before. Marveling at the mysterious crystal fragment before him he continued. Unbelievable, to think a yokai resides within. Yes, because of it, yokai and humankind suffered major blows, but it is also because of it that the yokai lord and his minions were slain and humans managed to overthrow the yokai regime. Isumi's mom, Hatsuho began to surmise based on her story. Even now, the influence of this yokai looms large, countless monsters L.U.S.T after its blood and flesh like the yokai lord. Once they detect its presence, these yokais will come knocking your door from miles away. Surprised at this hypothesis, he gnashed his teeth. It's no wonder from yesterday the monsters came attacking continuously. It was all because of this thing, I have the sudden urge to hit somebody. There's a very good reason why he's P.I.S. said, anyone would have been P.I.S. said. After tens of waves of A.S. Salient when he was finally on the verge of falling asleep, guess who had to wake up when he almost fell asleep? Dismissing his thought by shaking his head, he looked towards Hatsuho with a stern expression. Well then madam, are you aware of the whereabouts of the other half of this mysterious crystal fragment? Hold on. Hinagiko can't help but be stunned by him as she pulled him back. Are you really planning on retrieving the other half of this crystal? There's a yokai inside it, you know. Rubbing his head he shrugged at her. It's just a yokai, not the first time I have met with one, that's for sure. Then why are you still gathering them, this kind of thing that looks pretty on the outside but sinister on the inside? Throwing it away would be better. What was a pretty crystal now looked like flood water and vicious beast to her. She was also quite worried about its nature. Sensing a chance, he before tossing the crystal onto her body. What's the matter? Ya afraid? Jumping in fright, she yelped and frantically threw it back at him while glaring at him. Mina, doesn't he understand when someone's afraid? Come now, aren't I here for you? Seeing that she's really afraid, he softened up and stopped teasing her while comforting her. Her angry face dissolved and gave him the white of her eyes, followed by a humph and then the head turn. Pulling her hands, he helplessly tried to coax her. Oh come on, don't be so irate. I have a very good reason to gather it, you will know in good time. Who's a good sweetie pie? Listening to him trying to coax her like she's his girlfriend, her anger disappeared and she grabbed his hands with a blushing face and then struggling free after a bit. I'm so done with this tsundere. Meanwhile Isumi's mom was watching the scene unfold on the side, veritably amused. She glanced at Wu Yan and then Hinajiku. She kept looking between the two. Noticing her mom's behavior, the Isumi who hated getting lost began to truly wish, why didn't she lose her way before this? If she did, she wouldn't have need to bring over the both of them to her and she wouldn't be put in such a situation. Geez, mom. Waiting after they finished their skit, her mom beamed at them. You two must be couple, your relationship is so great, how admirable, to think I was just like you back then with Isumi's father. Perceiving that she is going off track again, and the destination is an Sing one, Hinagika quickly shrieked at her with face red as apple. No, it's not like that. Auntie, we're not couples, not couples, I'm just his sister, yes, that's right. I am so done with this tsundere C.R.A.P. Wait, that was said already, not going to Tsukumai further. Hatsuho probably likes to go off track so much it's a habit. They were clearly discussing yokai before this and now it's her love history. What's more, she forgot what she said before and repeated it a second time. The blushing Hinagiko began to. Unable to muster up any strength, he tried to get the conversation going again. Well, Madam Sajinomiya, the other piece of the crystal, would you happen to know where it is? Era, you guys don't know this but actually Isumi's father is very cute, he. Looking up at the sky, and all he saw was the big A.S. ceiling overhead, Hinagika followed suit as well, but she looks cuter than him while doing so. Isumi pulling her mother's hand and with a yank rescued her mother from the labyrinth of memory, TL, referring to villains who right before their death remembers something and how they came to be this way in an attempt to make their death more sappy and tragic or justify partly their actions among other things. For the lack of better translation I put labyrinth of memory, because there's no end to her babbling, open to suggestion. Wu Yan and Hinagika can't thank her enough for this. They feel like they are the ones that needed the save more than anyone. He clapped his hand loudly to get her attention lest she goes out of frequency again. Putting on a face no better than crying, he mewled. Madam Sajinomiya, the other half of the crystal, do you know where it is? Yes, I do. Fine, straight to point. From the rapid recovery to main issue, except for Hatsuho, everyone couldn't adjust in time. Even the troll Wu Yan didn't dance out of joy for hearing his long-awaited answer. It feels like something is stuck in his chest and bearing down on me. Heaving the stress in the form of pants, he turned his head when he heard the same voice and saw Hinajika doing the same thing. The both looked at each other and from the side they looked rather tragic. Please by all means tell me, madam, where's the other half of the mysterious crystal fragment? Saying it word by word with a serious tone while thinking that had she not been a senior she would have been sent to outer S.P.A.ce with a kick from him and then brought back to be subjected to his methods to get his answer, for instance interrogation by torture and whatnot. TL, this was written in NSFW kind of NSFW tone. The sealing crystal, also known as mysterious crystal, was separated into two by the exorcist clan's leader to prevent it from one day bringing harm to men once more. Ever since the sealing of that monstrous yokai, one half of it was kept inside his clan's vault and the other was used as a nucleus of another sealing ceremony. Stopping here she smiled at him. Unsure of what to say he was stunned. Used as part of another sealing ceremony's nucleus? Would that be? Indeed, it's the seal at the deepest region of the miasma in what is present-day Heikuo Academy old dormitory's underground hall. He suddenly understood. So it's like this, no wonder the underground hall was filled with monsters, it was a place of heavy miasma. It would be plausible that such a place would attract many monster and even a thing on the level of a yokai leader. It was also reasonable to believe that the reason why the parade of monster that has gathered didn't go out attacking students in Heikuo Academy and even went undetected by Isumi. It was all because of the sealing effect of this crystal. Some mysteries still remained unanswered, like why after killing the yokai leader the mysterious crystal fragment appeared in his hands. But he didn't want to pursue the minor detail, he just concluded that it's a drop from killing mobs. TL, if you listen closely, you will hear the faint sound of author hand waving. Done in moderation it's okay, but done often it has a way of killing suspension of disbelief. After the realization he asks seriously. Then that other half is currently within the exorcist clan's current generation, is that right? That is so. Then where is that? It's with me. Repeat that please. I said it's with me. As Isumi's mom said that, she took out a crystal that looks just like his and said it to him. He is currently saging his hurting head. He doesn't understand why he felt no joy at obtaining this crystal, quite the contrary, he felt juked, very juked. It had a tiger head snake tail kind of feeling. TL, very good start bad ending, strong start sappy end, anticlimactic. Slapping his face he walked in front of Hatsuho and earnestly pleaded. Madam, can you please give this crystal to me, it's very important. Sure. He knows he has resisted to farce like this, but he really must admit he is quite shocked. For saying something like this, thank you, oh so many thank you, madam. While his heart faced the sky and sighed, he ardently thanked her because the gal clearly helped him out a lot, didn't he, and didn't even make it hard for him. Just as he's receiving the crystal, a soft but loud voice came out of nowhere. It's not that loud, but it's enough to give everyone a jump. Well, it's not entirely true that everyone was shocked, it's only Wu Yan and Hinajiku. Isumi just looked at the source of the voice while her mom paid it no heed and continued sing the crystal. A shadow flashed past and before he could receive it the crystal disappeared. Looking at the thing he went. Great-grandmother, why are you here? Isumi looked at her vacantly. Great-grandmother. Please, at least she ages. Hinajiku's mom ages backwards, source, Wikia. Hinajiku's lips kept twitching looking at the intruder. It would be hard to blame them for behaving like this, the intruder had long white hair and her height didn't reach 1.4 m. With a smooth face like no other she looked just like a 10-something loli. And this loli, was referred to by Isumi as great-grandmother. How can Hinajiku be calm? As for Wu Yan, he knew about her, just didn't expect her appearance. My child, how can you just casually give something so dangerous to someone else? If the yokai broke free, what will we do? The little loli jumped up and down in exasperation. Era. With a gentle smile she assured her. Wu Yan's a good kid, he won't fool around with it. She looked at her with frustration. Who knows for sure if he's faking it or not? If he's lying, what then? He won't. No, I don't agree. Over my dead body. The mad little loli turned her head away while pouting. His headache came back. He can't just s.n.a.t.c.h it away. Isumi's mom just laughed gently and shot her down. Even if we let him settle that thing for us, you still won't agree. He clearly saw that when she said settle that thing for us, her eyes brightened up and excitedly looked at him before agreeing. Good, it's a deal. Weren't you objecting just now? Something about over your dead body. Just ring me up, I will secure, contain, and protect her. Chapter 28. If Wu Yan had not seen in the original work how this life form really looked like, even if he were to be beaten to death he would still not believe she's Isumi's great-grandmother. No matter how one looks at her, she looked just like a little loli. Biologically or psychologically. Watching the little loli throwing a tantrum jumping up and down in front of him, he felt various kinds of immense pressure. If you need help with anything, just say it, I will do my best to. He said so as if everything has become clear to him. Figures, it's the last mission and it's an artifact, how can it be accomplished so easily? It felt so unreal to him. Let me do the explanations. Isumi's mom pulled away the little loli and smiled gently at him. I will seriously listen and I hope you would seriously respond as well. He emphasized the seriously part of his speech. He doesn't need to listen to the next season of her love history. He didn't know if she had received the message, but she pulled out a charm from her chest. Rather than saying it is unique from other charms, it's more like it's old and tattered from what seems to be the ravage of time. And this is. He finds it odd that she would bring out a charm because from the charm, he felt something weird being given off by it. Isumi uses charms as well, and he's seen it. The effect is quite something, but in the end it's no more than a switch, an outlet to manifest her power. There's nothing about the charm that's special per se. If she didn't exert any power on the charm, then the charm is nothing more than paper. But this charm, however, had a weird aura to it. Some power is exerted on it, and from the tattered looks, it seems the one who did so isn't Isumi or her mother. This charm is a PAS.S for a barrier. Isumi's mom turned serious when she said this. A PAS.S to a barrier. He glanced at Hinajika to see if she has any opinion on this matter, but it seems she did not, so he turned back to her mom. We, the Sajinomi Yaz, as an exorcist clan, has to date eliminated countless spirits. She has a rather proud look on her face. It seems she's quite proud of her family's achievement, but she returned back to subject very soon. Competent as we are, there's still some spirits that can't be dealt with by our abilities, and these spirits tend to be much stronger than your run-off-the-mill variants. They can only be sealed to keep them away from doing harm to human. Seal, is it? He could more or less guess what she's going to ask him to do. Nodding, she continued. These deviant spirits, thought not many, has accumulated over the decades, and so has come to a point where they're quite numerous. Therefore, to prevent the sealing sites from increasing to a level where management would be impossible and the slightest breach of containment would create an unsalvageable mess, the head of one of the many generations decided to pool together the whole clan's power and set a gigantic sealing barrier. That is to say, because you guys can't get rid of these spirits, you've decided to dump them all in this barrier. Yes. Indeed, as long it's of a certain level of strength and can't be completely destroyed, we, the Sajinomi Yaz, will seal the spirit in there. Frowning, he doesn't know what to comment on. Doing it like these, there are various pros and cons. Noticing this, she also sighed. I think Wu Yan-kun has realized it. Doing this certainly could reduce a lot of HA.S.SLE, but at the same time it opened the door to other bigger issues as well. Bigger issues. Hinajika turned up her brows at her. Helplessly shrugging, he explained. If my guesses are correct, this would avoid being spread too thin, but because the deviant spirits are all gathered at one place. When they have reached a critical ma.s, these spirits would pose a significant hazard. TL, imagine a toilet bowl where s.h.i.taccu. Malates and the plumbing broke for a long time. What? Surprised, she turned her gaze over to Isumi and she could only shake her head, bitterly laughing as she continued. Yes, and with the sage of times these spirits increased in number and strength, and finally one day an accident happened. The head of that generation returned from an exorcism and decided to go inside the containment to put the spirit away, but he never came back. The clan at that time almost lost their sense about the matter. They sent out recon parties into the barrier but none made it back alive. So the new head decided to fortify the barrier and completely sealing it off, not allowing clan members to seal any more spirits inside. Noticing something off, he asked her, "If that's so, then what's the issue? Was the containment breached?" "No way." Dryly laughing, Hinajika tried to confirm with Isumi's mom. Dismissing her thoughts by shaking her hand, she resumed, "No, sealing spirits into it anymore has been banned, and with the way it is, barring any unforeseen circumstances, containment breach absolutely won't happen." Hinajiku heaved a sigh of relief, while he felt humored by the story, before turning to Hatsuho. "Since there's nothing wrong with the barrier, is the matter at hand still something you require me to do with the barrier?" "Yes, it is." Lifting the charm in her hands, she proceeded. "This is the only way pas.s to enter the barrier. Only the holder of this charm and enter the barrier." Wait. Upset, Hinajika protested. "Are you guys insinuating that Yan enter the barrier?" Hatsuho just nodded grimly at her response. "No way. I absolutely will not agree." Still shouting, she continued. "Aren't you guys asking Yan to go dig his own grave inside? There's a bunch of strong monsters inside, you know." Pulling her back, he bitterly laughed. "Hinajiku, please don't get so agitated and let Madam finish her words." "Yan, you must not go." Seeing that he didn't refuse immediately, she can't help but panic. Patting her back to signal her to calm down, he looked at Hatsuho. "Could you please tell me the specifics of the situation?" Sighing, she described the details. "Actually, we just want Wu Yan-kun to help us retrieve something." "Retrieval A.S. assignment." He urged her to continue with his eyes. "It is the treasure of Sajinomiya clan, the jewel of Heavenly Palace." TL, not sure if I should put J.A. Payne's name here. I might be giving it the wrong name as well, open to suggestion. As she announced this, a servant bringing a very old book appeared and pas. Said it to Hatsuho before retreating away. Turning the pages, she pointed out at a talisman. "It is this talisman." What appeared to them is but a simple ordinary talisman. He can't help but raise his doubts. "This is the treasure of Sajinomiya's. Looks to me like a normal talisman. Why would it be inside the barrier with the monsters?" She lowered her head in self-derision at his comment. "The jewel of Heavenly Palace is indeed our treasure, only the head of the clan has the right to wear it. But like I said, one of the clan's head went inside the barrier and never came back. Chances are he has met his doom, but the thing is he brought the jewel of Heavenly Palace with him inside of it as well." He nodded in understanding and looked at the talisman before falling into contemplation. "Is it that important?" Sitting straight and without blinking, she said unhesitatingly, and with never before seen resolution she declared to him. "Indeed. It's very important. It's very, very important." Hinajiku can't help asking her when she heard it. "Isn't it just a talisman? Even if it's important, you can't just send people inside to die for it." Hatsuho responded with an indifferent expression. "If it really could be retrieved simply by sending someone to their graves, then I really hope that person was me." Astounded by what her mom said, Isumi could only gasp. It looks like she's quite shaken by her resolution. Wu Yan and Hinajiku were also shocked by her answer, And O. Body could disagree that she had a very serious tone reflected in her words. Is the jewel of Heavenly Palace really that significant? To the point where you would throw away your life for it? Raising his brows at her, he questioned whether the treasure of Sajanome, as important as it is, really meant something to she who would normally not care about tokens or superficial materials. With her personality, there's something fishy going on for sure. It is my hope to listen to your reason, the real reason. He showed a very severe expression as he said so. Isumi's mom hesitated a bit before looking at Isumi with a gaze shining with love. The whole place turned silent at that moment. In truth, the jewel of Heavenly Palace served as nothing more than a symbol of our clan, even though it's our treasure. If one has to say for sure what it does, then it only has the function of stabilizing one's spiritual energy, but this measly one function is very important to us. She sighed and closed her eyes before plainly explaining herself. Stabilization of spiritual energy. Confounded, he looked at Isumi, who stood on the side. Wu Yan-kun picked things up really quickly, huh? Hatsuho affectionately patted Isumi's head while love and desire to spoil her daughter seemed to be reflected in her eyes. Isumi was born with spiritual power like no other human. Because of this, she was able to become an exorcist of preeminent stature at a very young age. Sing everyone else in the clan, including me and great-grandmother, TL, not sure why she said grandmother when Ginka is her grandmother. But, even so, her spiritual power was never stable. Without a suitable solution, she can't hold her spiritual power in check and live a life like normal human. Isumi's eyes began to dampen while Wu Yan and Hinajiku went solemn. So everything was for the sake of her daughter. She would hand out such a dangerous, mysterious crystal fragment in the process. If she could, she would even willingly risk her life for the sake of her daughter. Faced with such an overwhelming motherly love, the both of them can't reject such a cause, so they can only mute themselves. Definitely, I won't force Wu Yan-kun. She laughed softly while saying so, but her gaze still remained on her daughter. Bitterly laughing, F.U.C.K Mission 3, just her sincere selfless attitude was sufficient to make him unable to turn down her request. Besides, dangerous sounding as it is, strong monsters equal tons of EXP. With his ability in this world where the mystic level isn't that high, he should still be able to handle it. And if he can't, well, the cheat items inside his system begs to differ. The stockpiled points should be able to safeguard his life. In other words, this trip is set in stone. I understand, Madam Sajanome. Just leave the thing about Jewel of Heavenly Palace with me. Standing up, he saged his shoulders before he laughed it off. Wanting to say something but can't, her mouth opened and closed intermittently, but in the end Hinajiku lowered her head. Elated at his reply, she said the charm over to him before giving a deep bow and fervently thanked him. Please, by all means, I leave it in your care. TL, I honestly did not expect feels here. I thought Ginka would want to suck Wu Yan or something. Chapter 29. Hinajiku. I'm going. No, I mean this really is. But. Hinajiku's not even listening to him. He felt like crying but tears won't come out. He accepted the fact that she might be very crossed for agreeing to travel to such a dangerous place. After exiting Sajanomiya household, he was like die then die, nothing much. He was prepared to receive his discipline from Kaiko-sama. However, right after going out of the house, she just said one line to him, I'm going. He's thought up of various scenarios. She might beat the C.R.A.P out of him, give him the cold shoulders, a fantastic goodbye, or even stab in time with kitchen knife. Just now the scenario where she would go with him. This time, it's not the trashy mob headless giant, and compared to the underground hall, the danger this time is on another scale altogether. He could go there without much afterthought because he has the system as his trump card, also because he survived in the giant beast forest before, so he could still deal with stuff like this. This plan, however, didn't take into consideration of Kaiko-sama. If it did, then it's all up in the air. Kaiko-sama is only level 18, tier 2 onlim, and the foe this time should at the very least all be level 20. Not to mention it's not just one, it's a whole nest of them. Isn't this just asking Kaiko-sama to go send vegetables? TL, dig her own grave, get served. He persuaded ever so patiently to no result. Hinajiku, the target this time lies in a very hostile area, even I might not be able to protect myself, how can I just let you waltz in there? She shifted back to face him before acting stubbornly irrefutable like before. Because it's dangerous, that's why I want to go even more. But are you resenting me as troublesome? Thinking I might be in the way? She lividly shouted at him. Good G.O.D. The misunderstanding, he tried to defend himself by shaking his head. It's not like that, I just fear that there might be a 1 in 10,000 chance that. I don't care, if you're going, I'm going. Now he's dithering, she just won't listen, if she's sure about something even 9 ox can't drag her back, TL, very stubborn. And if he just went there without giving her the time of day, then going by her personality, the probability that she would come running to find him is practically 100%. But, if she did come along, AI. TL Mandarin onomatopoeia for sighing, P.R.O. Announced a yeah, drag the apart of I a bit longer. Would please listen to me just this once. Helplessly he tried to raise his dissent. With her eyes on him, he could see that her eyes were moistening. Oh, Lord, this can't be. Startled by waifu, this trend, isn't it going to end up in her crying? H.E.L.L. No man, moi can't deal with girls' tears, much less someone I like. As long as it's anyone who knows her, they would know that this compet.I.Tivgal would be harder to agitate than asking the academy's boys to wear skirts, and yet Wu Yan, who only started hanging out with her for about 1 month, almost made her cry twice. If she really did cry, this would be a treacherous sin against all that is holy. He feebly tried to comfort. Hinajiku, you. I'm afraid. Cutting him off and eleving him in a daze, she rubbed her tears before lifting her head, gazing at him, and continued muttering. I'm afraid, I'm really afraid that once you go there you wouldn't be coming back, that's why I'm afraid, so really afraid. Saying so, the windows to her soul began to fog up once more. That is why I want to follow you, at least I can be of help at your side. He's at a loss of word at her true intentions. He has already forgotten that he might very well be able to confront risky situations like it's another day at work, but can someone like Hinajiku really see him off into a situation like that? Towards the adventuring him, there's no one else who would care more than the one and only Hinajiku before him. How could he empathize with her when he can only think of the sealed barrier as a leveling map? Self-mockingly he lowered his head and laughed. That is true, selfishly agreeing others' plea when I didn't even think about your feelings. It looks like I still need much improvement. Her body shook before falling straight into his embrace. This gave him quite a scare. Frantically he held onto her waist while showing a vacant expression. Can Kaiko-sama voluntarily give other people a hug? Clouded by similar thoughts, this super development has exceeded his predictions. Hinajiku's also very embarrassed. Said by her subconscious action, her body moved without her knowing, and by the time she realized it, she can already hear his heartbeat. She just closed her eyes and blushed. Her body was trembling slightly, since she already got this far, might as well see it through. I don't know why you would risk your life for that crystal, but since you have your reasons, then I have mine as well. Please let me go with you, I beg of you. Basking in the scent of her hair, he let out a long sigh. Aren't you going to chastise me or something? You know, for chasing after a crystal while risking my life and whatnot. Shaking her head, she laughed at the guy's goofiness. You said so yourself that you would tell me what's really going on with you. That's our promise, and I believe in you, that you have your own reason. Moved by what she said, he drew her body closer to his. He's an otaku, and he likes 2D chicks, just liking them, nothing much. This is something only an otaku will understand. And now the object of his affection trusted him and treated him like this, now what would he feel? He don't know about other people, but he's pretty confident about what he's feeling. I must tell her, my feelings. Hinajiku, I like you, I love you very much. Listening to that sweet saccharine voice, her body jolted and she bit her lips ever tighter, trying to keep her feelings from exploding outwards. She didn't leak all right, but from her eyes, tears flowed. He was afraid of girls' tears before, but he just smiled gently at the sight of her tear because he knows the meaning of this tear is a different kind of significance. Hanging onto his neck, she buried her head deep inside his chest, soundlessly requiting her feelings. The tears incessantly dropped without much sound, and she showed a smile so bright it's blindingly beautiful. Rubbing away her tears with his hand, he revealed to her. Did you know? I'm actually not of this world. She raised her head at this statement, urging him on without saying anything. I came from another Earth much like this world, except there's no monsters, no exorcist, just a very normal world. A certain day 4 months ago I suddenly woke up and found myself in another world. In that world there's monsters roaming about as well as supers, and I only have a system. As he narrated his background, her facial expression changed and shifted back and forth from mystified, shocked, blank. Can one blame her? What he said is really that unbelievable. She showed various expression throughout the exchange, but never distrust. Observing everything as he spoke, he questioned her after revealing the last mission he received after Advent on this world. Do you really believe something that looks like Arabian story, TL, fantasy story? Aren't you the least bit suspicious of its validity? Against his questioning tone, she just flapped her mouth and turned red before muttering. You said it, you would tell me the truth one day, yeah? That's why I've already prepared myself, and you also said that when you're hugging another girl you won't lie, right? Stunned by her, his feelings burst out and he raised her face and violently stuck his face onto it, much to her shock. Woo. TL, M.U.F. Fled voice. With widened eyes and a froze body, she can't recover from this. Everything happened so fast. Even if she said she was prepared for his big reveal, she didn't expect her first kiss to arrive at such short notice. When she did respond, his tongue entered her mouth and coiled itself around hers, making her already wide eyes even wider. Under his A.S. Salt, her body began to weaken and fell in his hug, staring wide and feeling the sensation coming from her tongue. She just laid there. 1 second. 1 minute. Or 1 hour. Time has completely lost its meaning in the duo's world. When he finally parted lips with her, she was still lost inside her mind. First kiss, gone just like that. Licking his lips, he smirked. So deliciously sweet. His voice woke her up from her stupor. Looking at that smug A.S. grin, she finally knew what she has gotten herself into. Red hue began to color her face, and in her foggy eyes she knew what he meant by that, and her mouth slowly grew wide in disbelief before parting herself from his body with a great big ah. She pointed her quivering fingers at him. You. What about me? Entertained by her response, he teased her more for her response. You, how can you be like this? She held her retort back in her stomach, but it all came out as this incoherent babble. Why can't I be like this? You, without my consent, and did. Looking at the jerk playing dumb, she went into frenzy inside her heart. Did I not? Faking a head tilt, he laughed. I remember somebody once said if I held my end of the deal she would return the favor she owed, isn't that right? I just told you everything about me, so the favor you owed me must be done. That is nothing but logical proceeding, yes. As he said so, he chuckled silently. Except for the part about you being a 2D shoujo, I have said everything. He dared not said this to her, that she is but an anime character. Who knows how the tsundere Kaiko-sama would act if she did? Listening to his justification, she could only shut her mouth, albeit with much frustration. Thinking back about the kiss, her heart went into chaos and shame. so embarrassed. Said she didn't know how to face him. Shutting her eyes, covering her face, lowering her head, she dashed away in the opposite direction. Touching his lips, he can't describe his intense feeling at the moment. To think things would get to this level so fast even he can barely keep up. At the time when he kissed her it was because he was moved so much that he only thought about her and how to express himself. After he realized what he has done, he had already took her first kiss. Hence he could only calm himself down by poking fun at her. That was his first time as well. However he hid the embarrassing fact away. So Kaiko-sama, it looks like she still needs more training after this. The jerk grinned shamelessly while chasing after Kaiko-sama. That's because, she ran in the wrong direction. First summon incoming. Chapter 30. Nighttime, at the Hinajiku household. Even since they came back, Kaiko-sama has been hiding inside her room and wouldn't come out no matter what. Even though during dinner time, using delicious dishes as bait, she still won't open her door. Come on now, really. Wu Yan is currently muttering about how ridiculous she's being. Despite it being her first time, was there really a need to overreact like this? It was his first time as well, but his heart just happened to beat a bit faster, blushed a bit embarrassed. Said sure, but did she really have to avoid looking at him? Now this is plainly, Kaiko-sama is very pure, not a single person has ever touched her hands in these past 15 years. Now, the first kiss she has been saving for many years gone just like that, as a pure young lady like no other this is expected. And she dodged a bullet by doing so as well. What with him planning on training her? Since there's not much point sticking around outside her room, he might as well go back to his room to eat by himself. She will definitely come out tomorrow when the journey officially begins. Yes, he's planning to bring her along. If anything, it's because he didn't want to be apart from her. The two are currently in the stage where they're basking in the sweet warmness before being completely infatuated with each other. To avoid putting her in undue danger, he had to put down some countermeasures, that's for sure. Right now, he's conversing with System inside his room. System, if I were leave this world, how to bring someone else outside? This is a very important question for him. If this issue can't be resolved with satisfaction, he might just stay, who knows? To bring a person out of this world, one only needs to pay a certain amount of SP after arriving at Silveria to summon the target. Besides him, this includes his summon as well, but only said so in later part of series. No one can hear the System's voice as it explained without hesitation. Summon. Frowning, he continued. If it's like that, then is the summoned individual the same one I know? Each summon in the menu is unique in that there's only ever one, the one you summon can only be that one and no more than one. That's so. He reitered. So if I were to summon a character, what if she turns out to be the one before I knew her? That would be impossible. When user arrives in Silveria, every transcript worlds are in a frozen state, so for example in the anime world, if user were to summon one character he has never met before, then that summon would be the one that existed a day before the arc in that world started. Alright. Nodding in comprehension, so basically the summons are all existing in a state a day before the arc in their worlds begin. He should take note of this, lest summoning a certain character that has went altered, probably reference to Alter Saber, then he would really be in for it then. What if it's an individual I have met before? Like for instance the characters in this world. If the user had field practice in a certain transcript world, upon return to Silveria the transcript world will stop at the precise moment user left it, and the summoned individual would be in the state where it was frozen. Amused by this, he laughed. So what you're saying is that if I leave this world, then the time here will stop and any character I summoned, for instance Hinajika, would be summoned as is from the room she's hiding in right now? Yes. Certainly, but be warned, a menu only ever have one character and no more than one may exist at any one time. The time of summon may differ, a day before arc or the moment when he leave the world, but they will not be the exact same character individual summon. Please choose your summons wisely. System, there's something I've been meaning to ask. The characters I have summoned, in what way do they differ from the originals? He had always took a nonchalant attitude to summoning back then because he's still weak as shit. But now that he's stronger, his Zion burned once more, and now is the time to summon his first summon. Level 30 is nothing to certain overpowered anime characters, but at least he's not so ridiculously overwhelmingly bottom of the tier weak. The summons are exactly the same, TL copy, of the originals. It's just that once they're summoned their life would be connected with the user. What do you mean by that? When the user summon characters, said character's life no longer belongs to them and belongs with the user, they merge together, and when the user dies so too will the summons. If the user didn't die, then even if the summons die the user can give it a second chance to live inside his body. Inside body. Feeling a chill run down his spine, he wryly laughed while his scalp began to itch. System, surely you're not asking me to give birth to dead characters. Indeed. Boom goes the sound inside his brain. Now he felt like the heaven fell down and the earth crumbled away, leaving a stupefied face so stupid it can scare the s.h.i.t out of any kid. It feels like his soul went poof and he turned into a vegetable, opening and closing his mouth. Lord knows what he's blabbering about. This isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real. Repeating the same line like a broken machine, his voice sounded so anguishing. So to say, if my summons died, then I would have to become the creator. This what you saying? With a broken down smile he walked towards the window. If the system affirmed his suspicion, then he would jump out of the window head down in the hopes that it would erase this part of the conversation. When the summon dies, he or she will use the life force in the user to begin their revival, not through impregnation. An A.N.A.Logi would be binary fission to give birth to it. His broken smile instantly disappeared and he slammed the window shut before picking up the cup of joe on his table and sipping it like a sir, as if the thing before didn't even made rustle him. You lost your pacing. TL, even funnier if you know the truth behind system. At least he received a good news, as long as he didn't die then his summon would never die as well. Is there any flaw with the revived summons? User needs totally half the amount of initial SP amount to revive summons. Yep, called it. It sounded too good to be true. Posing like he saw it from miles away, it's not the first time he has to deal with how the system has absolutely no integrity. He's schooled on numerous occasions already. So half of initial SP is the price of revival, that is to say 10,000 summon would require 5,000, that correct? Yes. Also, the summon will share the same leveling system as user. Other than these two items to take note of, there's not much difference of note between summons and originals. Please be at ease. Leveling system. He stopped his coffee sipping and pursued the system. Please elaborate. The summons will share the leveling system with the user, which means they can, in a way similar to the user, defeat/hunt/kill mobs to increase the user and summons levels through experience points. No F.U.C. King Wei. Jumping up from his seat. So to say, if my summon killed a mob, I will get half the experience points, something like that. No, user and summons alike will obtain the full EXP. TL. Step 1, summon lots of cheap A.S.S summon. Step 2, send M out to various low-level area in Giant Beast Forest before moving in circling center along with increase in levels. Step 3. Step 4, profit. Astounded by the bomb share.E.L.L, he just went silent. Hypothetically speaking, if my summons went farming, I would also get the same experience points as them. That is correct. Now he felt like beating himself. He would have summoned if he had knowledge of this before. He won't have to go through the giant beast forest living a solitary life, unaccompanied by a soul. Given another chance to do it over, he would probably have made the same choice, with that tasteless pride of him. Opening the menu, he quickly located Hinajuku on the list. To prevent anything unexpected from happening, he would be wise to turn Hinajiku into his summon first and foremost, at least then he would be able to revive her if S.H.I.T went south. At that point he just have to make sure he survives. Then there's the experience points sharing system, when she would get the same amount if he killed some mobs. Isn't that basically power leveling? And when she reached a high enough level, then he would garnered himself a very strong ally. The chances of securing the Jewel of Heavenly Palace would increase substantially as well. What he didn't expect, however, is that the option for her is gray and unclickable. System, what the f.u.c.k? Why is it all gray? Agitated by this, he shouted at the system. The conversation before were done telepathically, but he voiced this one out, showing just how alarmed he is. If he can't summon Hinajiku. Reminder, if user resides in a summons world, the summons belonging to that world can't be summoned. Only when user exists will summoning be possible. Listening to its explanation, he heaved a sigh and then another. With this his plans went right into dustbin. System, what if a Saradin summon died before summoning? Will I still be able to summon her? Reminder, once the individual died, then summoning will no longer be possible. Let it be known once more that there's only ever one of each summon. In case of a world where user has never gone into before, the user can only summon characters still existing a day before arc begins. In case of when the user went into transcript world, then if said character died, then said individual will never ever be able to be summoned. A thunder went through his body and a brilliant, resolute light went through his eyes. He must absolutely protect Hinajiku and make sure nothing happens to her tomorrow. With thoughts like this, he went through the menu once more. He might be able to defend himself, but Hinajiku's just too weak. It doesn't matter if he required one more helping hand or to protect her, but he must summon a character this time. And it must kick a.s.s. So he browsed through the menu. It is set in stone inside his mind that he would only ever summon those Momo 2D Xiaojos. And since he just started his thing with Hinajiku, the Xiaojo must be chosen prudently, for example, compatible with her personality. What's the personality of Hinajiku? In essence, tsundere, compat.i.tiv, masculine. She even wears a underneath her skirt. Since the summon has to fit Hinajiku's personality, then firstly the age must not be too wide. Furthermore, she has to have compatible personality, or rather mo points. Tsundere, compat.i.tiv, masculine, not much difference in age, kick a.s.s, and modesty shorts. In his mind, there's only one candidate. Mikoto Misaka, magical index and scientific railguns character, TL, which begs the question, what if the character exists in more than one world? Which version would be summoned? The number 3 of 7 LV5 espers in the whole Academy City, 70,000 summoning points. Clicking the summon B.U.T.ton, a radiant light flashed and soon a tea-colored hair cool looking girl was constructed slowly within the brilliant light. Super Railgun. Mikoto Misaka, at the scene. Part 2 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.